We're not just assembling Avengers today. In this super-powered video, I will bring you back through years of Marvel facts that will blow your mind and take you back in time. Not too unlike the Tesseract, or should I say the Space Stone. Welcome back to Cinematica. Today we've got quite the upload for you. About 700 or possibly more Marvel facts. Let's kick things off with a gem from 2018. 107 Avengers Infinity War facts you need to know. Remember the absolute insanity that followed this movie? All those heroes getting snapped. We had no idea what was coming next. Thankfully, Cinematica came through with 107 trivia facts to keep our minds in a happier place, away from Tony Stark floating aimlessly through space or from Spider-Man dissolving before our very eyes.
There was an idea to bring together a group of 107 facts. But for the biggest cinematic event in all of time and space, Avengers Infinity War has managed to keep a surprising amount of information hidden under its gauntlet-covered thumb. So to board the hype train without ruining the movie, we've got 107 spoiler-free facts about Avengers Infinity War that you should know. Avengers, assemble! Avengers Infinity War was directed by the Russo brothers, Joe and Anthony. They're taking the helm from previous franchise captain Joss Whedon. While this is their first Avengers film, they directed Winter Soldier and Civil War, so they're pretty well versed in this whole Marvel game. Just as the Russos' previous Marvel films were high-concept genre pieces, so too is Infinity War. To capture the smash-and-grab urgency of the movie, the brothers channeled 90s heist films. They actually watched some 90s heist movies to get the vibe, too. 2 Days in the Valley and Out of Sight inspired the tone of Infinity War. Of course they drew influence from the comics, too. The 1991 Infinity Gauntlet and the 2013 Infinity titles were the biggest basis for the movie. But don't expect to see the film playing out in exactly the same way. In the original Infinity Gauntlet story, Silver Surfer comes crashing into the Sanctum Sanctorum to warn Doctor Strange of Thanos' arrival. Judging by the trailers, it looks like the Hulk will be standing in for the Surfer. Marvel didn't even own some of the comic characters who were part of the original storyline. Since word came out that Disney had reacquired the rights to Silver Surfer, though, rumors circulated that he would be popping up. The Russo brothers shot that down, but hinted that his appearance may be possible one day. If the Russos could only have one mutant, then it would of course be Wolverine. Hashtag bring back Jackman. The Russos are really stressing that Infinity War is the beginning of the end. They've called it the conclusion of the book that began with Iron Man back in 2008. It's like one long graphic novel that we've only got a few chapters left in. Directors assemble! The Russos worked closely with the other MCU directors to make sure that all their movies linked up. In particular, Taika Waititi, who was wrapping up Thor Ragnarok, and Peyton Reed, who is following up Infinity War with Ant-Man and the Wasp. Don't worry though, this movie will be nothing like anything you've seen before. According to Iron Man himself, Robert Downey Jr., they're not retreading any of the same old MCU ground. Even the airport sequence from Civil War, which fans loved, will be a far cry from the type of action this movie brings. RDJ calls it the anti-process. Finding what works, and then not doing it. The movie's plot was kept so secret that even the actors were in the dark. They were given partial shooting scripts with fake endings and only learned what was happening via verbal explanation on the shooting day. Tom Holland asked to read the full script, but producers specifically shot him down. Then again, Holland was notorious for slipping spoilers, so the role was probably made for him. Of the cast members, Benedict Cumberbatch read the most of the script. This, he claims, is because he's slow and needed the extra help to do his part, but we all know he was probably using his inner Sherlock to game the system. Because the Russos have managed to keep so much of the movie a secret thus far, they've asked that early viewers do the same, using the hashtag Thanos demands your silence. Don't ever use that hashtag unless you're already ready for some spoilers. Actors from the set of The Last Jedi commented that their movie always felt like an indie, despite being Star Wars. Not so with Infinity War. Many of the actors have commented that they were constantly aware of the scope of what they were doing. We know that this movie is slated to feature, well, pretty much every MCU hero of all time. The biggest assembly will see 32 main characters coming together. How do they even fit on screen? Wait, we can actually answer that rhetorical question. The movie is shot entirely in IMAX, which means the screen is 26% bigger than that of other standard movies, which means 26% better, obviously. That's just another way Infinity War is making film history. It is the first ever movie to be shot completely in IMAX. Not only is the movie in IMAX, but IMAX is in the movie's poster. Seriously, the IMAX logo is hidden in the poster 4 times. Some fans claim that they've spotted Ant-Man in there too. Honestly, there's so many characters on the poster, they could have hidden Waldo in there and I wouldn't have noticed. Since the cast is so large, the Russos realized that the only way to do them all justice was to break them down into smaller groups. They took this hint from the movie Nashville, which also sees different pairings of people woven into a bigger storyline. The daunting task of screenwriting this was given to frequent Marvel writers Christopher Marcus and Stephen McFeely. They wrote the first Avenger in the Dark World! No, wait, it's okay. They also wrote Civil War and Winter Soldier, so we're in pretty good hands. Given the character count, even a common dialogue sequence becomes complex from a directing standpoint. According to Joe Russo, every single character is important and needs to shine. It adds even more pressure to balancing the scene. Joe Russo has a term for exciting chemistry between two characters who are meeting for the first time. He calls it strange alchemy, and the movie is filled with those little interactions. Even behind the scenes, people were freaking out about their favorite characters meeting. In particular, the opportunity to get the Guardians and the Avengers together at last was a big sell. In case you weren't worried about your heroes facing imminent doom, heed the warning of the Russo brothers. They've said that everything has to end to have values, and that calls for stakes. So have your Kleenex ready. The movie was just as bittersweet for the actors as it is for the viewers. Many of the actors who have known each other for years knew this would likely be the last time they all work together. Besides all that, there is the matter of concluding contracts. In the coming movies, the deals that MCU struck with grandparents Chris Evans, Mark Ruffalo, RDJ, ScarJo, Chris Hemsworth, and Jeremy Renner are set to run out. Don't expect any recasts either. At least in Downey's case, the Russos have said that no one would be able to take over the role, whether Downey does decide to retire the Iron Suit or not. So who's to blame for all my anxiety? The mean Grimace himself, Thanos. He isn't just stealing the Infinity Stones, he's stealing the show too. The Russos have pinned him as the main character of this movie. The biggest cinematic baddie of all time is Darth Vader. With this movie, the Russos hope to make Thanos into a Vader for a new generation. In other words, be very afraid. Infinity War won't be covering Thanos' origin story. You'll have to go to the extended Marvel Cinematic Universe for that. The novel, Titan Consumed, will give you all the backstory you need to fear the Purple People Eater. Thanos was created by Jim Starlin, who actually cut ties with Marvel just last year due to a Thanos-related dispute. To be fair, Starlin didn't even know Thanos was going to appear in the MCU until a few weeks before the Avengers came out. He learned via leaks and rumors, just like the rest of us. Starlin has not so subtly alluded that he'd like a cameo in the movie since it's based on his work. So keep your eyes open for him. Maybe he'll show up in there. He first came up with Thanos while taking a psych class. It was based on the Thanos Eros concepts, also known as the life and death instincts. Not sure how that made him think of a giant world-consuming grimace, but whatever, dude, I'm no psychologist. Thanos' design was largely inspired by the work of Jack Kirby. Largely, as in Thanos used to be this thin dude, and Starlin beefed him up to look more like Kirby's DC Goliath, Darkseid. Thanos' first official comic appearance dates back to Iron Man number 55 in 1973. He popped up after that in various other Marvel comics, just like the MCU. As for his movie design, his armorless summer look is reminiscent of the humble robed outfit he sported in the comics. It also resembles his original sleeveless style from his first appearance. The teaser shot of Thanos lifting the Infinity Gauntlet is just like the iconic cover of the graphic novel of the same name. In the trailer, Gamora comments that Thanos can wipe out half the universe with the snap of his fingers. She's being literal there. Thanos' snap is actually a defining moment of the comics, wherein he actually does succeed in cutting down the population. Josh Brolin was cast as Thanos for Guardians of the Galaxy. Since the MCU producers knew this role was going to eventually be huge, they sent over a Hulk ton of research. Brolin had been working on the movie Everest at the time and spent more time reading comics than researching The Climb. At first, Brolin has said he felt more like a prop than a person in his role. The mocap suit he had to wear was so alien to him, no pun intended, that he had no idea how it would turn out. When he saw the footage and how his actions translated so seamlessly, he realized that he never should have doubted it. You may accidentally find yourself empathizing with Thanos as you watch Infinity War. This wasn't the intention, though. It wasn't until the movie was nearly done that the Russos came to Josh Brolin and admitted they had developed feelings for the Mad Titan. Brolin has likened Thanos to his role as Dan White in the 2009 biopic, Milk. Both are well-intentioned figures who become murderous when no one will hear them out. Thanos isn't Josh Brolin's only Marvel role this year. He's also Cable in Deadpool 2, which drops less than a month after Infinity War, and you know there's no way they're not going to make fun of that in that movie. Due to his Cable commitments, Brolin was absent throughout most of the production. He was often replaced by a stand-in actor who led the characters through their scenes. Ironically, in the comics, Thanos and Deadpool were competitors. Both were vying for the heart of Mistress Death. Maybe we'll see this plotline on the big screen one day if the late-stage meta-narrative of the MCU gets really insane. Thanos is joined by his league of cronies, the Black Order, though in the MCU they're called the Children of Thanos. This includes Corvus Glaive, Proxima Midnight, Ebony Maw, and Cull Obsidian. Nebula, Gamora, you've been replaced by kids with eviler names. Okay, wait, so if Thanos is working with these children, what did he mean by the whole I'll do it myself thing at the end of Age of Ultron? Turns out the Infinity War writers don't know either. They have no idea where he was, what he meant, why he said it. Just commenting, not our movie. For the chosen few who have seen Infinity War, Ebony Maw is an early favorite. Played by Tom Von Lawler, he has exactly the kind of captivating personality that the Russos wanted the children to carry. Cull Obsidian is portrayed by Terry Notary. Notary is best known for playing mocap apes like Kong in Skull Island and Rocket in Planet of the Apes. He's bringing his monkey business to the MCU now. The all-star cast keeps growing with the addition of The Leftovers and Fargo's Carrie Coon as Proxima Midnight. Coon's casting wasn't even announced until, like, the same month the movie dropped. Recruiting new Avengers at this critical point is a challenge. According to Tom Von Lawler, the MCU overlords do extensive background checks to make sure their newbies aren't prone to controversy or spoilers. The two kryptonites of good actors. Hell, prior to release, we didn't even know who Peter Dinklage was playing. All we knew is that, quote, we'd recognize him. Which, like, thanks Russos, that's probably why you cast him in the first place. Fans lost it when they learned that Brie Larson would be joining the MCU as Captain Marvel. The Russos must have lost something too, because for a while it was unclear whether Captain Marvel was going to be in Infinity War, whether her appearance got cut, or if it was even there in the first place. In the comic timeline, Civil War takes place after Infinity War. The Avengers are still an active team at the time of Thanos' arrival, which must have been convenient. Though it is pretty crazy to have gone through all that universe-ending destruction together and then still gotten mad over some legal paperwork. For the MCU, Civil War was intentionally moved first. Kevin Feige and the Russos wanted to split up the Avengers as a setup to add further tension to the inevitability of Thanos' arrival. Fans have noted the absence of Hawkeye across all the marketing material. Despite reports that he's in the movie, he's really only been on like one magazine cover by EW. Fans even photoshopped him into the posters and cut him into the trailers to fill the arrow-shaped holes in their hearts. The promo material has been mostly top-notch, but Elizabeth Olsen called out her Empire magazine article for photoshopping her face beyond recognition. Seriously guys, what was there to change? She already looks like Elizabeth Olsen. The Russos have tricked audiences with fake trailer footage before, and they did it again at the D23 Expo. In the sequence there, Thor had both his eyes. Following the release of Ragnarok, however, we've seen the real version of the scene where he has an eye patch. The trailer drew in 230 million views within 24 hours, beating the previous record held by the movie It. That'd be impressive, only 200 million of those views were just me, so, you know. Take it as you will. The marketing team hid tickets to the film behind Infinity War posters. It's a cool Wonka-esque idea, but doesn't that mean people are running around tearing down posters? I thought just DC fans were doing that. The film's working production title was Mary Lou. The previous Avengers films were codenamed Group Hug and After Party, and what any of those mean is anybody's guess. Production began January 23rd, 2017, with Robert Downey Jr., Chris Pratt, and Tom Holland joining forces day one. As usual, Iron Man is coming into this film with a new suit. This time though, it's his modern classic Bleeding Edge armor, which is made of nanites and stored inside Tony's body. It doesn't take a whole ton of detective work to see why fans are excited about seeing Robert Downey Jr. and Benedict Cumberbatch in a movie together. Both actors have played Sherlock Holmes, and they'll need to put those heads together to stop Thanos. Following their team up in Homecoming, Tony and Peter are working together again. Downey Jr. says it's to the credit of the writers that they realized the dynamic was so popular and decided to bring it back. Avengers that avenge together stay together, and watch Avengers movies together. Robert Downey Jr. hosted a screening of Black Panther for Tom Holland, which is definitely one way of crossing over that these movies have yet to do. Spider-Man may be Marvel's wisecracking hero, but it was Chris Pratt's jokes that kept Tom Holland cracking up. They had a hard time doing scenes together because Holland would break into laughter. No awkward reunion is complete without commenting on each other's new haircuts. Chris's Hemsworth and Evans ad-libbed a scene in which they do just that, having effectively swapped haircuts since they last saw each other in Age of Ultron. Thor's moving on past Mjolnir with a new weapon, Stormbreaker. The half-hammer, half-axe shares a name with the weapon used by Beta Ray Bill. Hey, in the comics he could wield Mjolnir, so it's only fair they share now. Since Thor evolved so much in Ragnarok, Chris Hemsworth wasn't sure which version of him would be appearing in this movie. He was so protective of Thor's new persona that he actually called the Russos out of concern it would be scrapped. Likewise, Dave Bautista was also worried about the Russo reign. Since James Gunn had been the driving force of the Guardians to this point, he was relieved to learn that the Russos were extremely collaborative with his part. To that end, James Gunn actually wrote some of the dialogue for the Guardians in this movie, particularly in the scenes in which they meet the Avengers. Gunn's distinct voice helped the interactions feel more natural. Despite its recent release, Guardians 2 actually took place years ago, sometime around 2014. That means by this movie, we haven't seen them in some time, so we have years of catching up to do. Black Widow is rocking a blonde Widow look in this movie. Scarlett Johansson has said that the new do was meant to show that some time and adventures have gone by since we last saw her, while also nodding to her undercover status. With her short blonde hairdo, Natasha now looks like the other Black Widow from the comics, Yelena Belova. Black Panther co-stars Winston Duke and Lupita Nyong'o saw the first Avengers together in 2012. They mused about what it would be like to be in a film like that. Well, at least one of them's in this movie now. You've made it, M'Baku. Infinity War is the middle of a 3-movie Hulk arc that began with Ragnarok and ends with Avengers 4. According to Mark Ruffalo, part of that development is that the Hulk now has the vocabulary and sentence structure of a 5-year-old. James Buchanan Barnes is always getting new nicknames, from Bucky to the Winter Soldier to his latest moniker, the White Wolf. It's his title in this film, first dropped in the Black Panther credit scene. The White Wolf is straight from the comics, but it wasn't Bucky. In fact, it was T'Challa's older foster brother, Hunter, the leader of the Hatut Zeraze. But we saw Black Panther and T'Challa doesn't have a brother, and Okoye is the War Dog leader, so the position's open. Meanwhile, his BFF Steve Rogers is going by a new name, Nomad. When Cap goes rogue from the government in the comic books, he sheds the stars and stripes and dons a darker costume, much like his current getup. In the trailer, we get a shot of Vision in his human form. In the comics, his alter ego is named Victor Shade, and Vision uses it to blend in with the rest of mankind. If Scarlet Witch ever got a standalone film, Elizabeth Olsen knows exactly what plotline she'd want. The House of M sees Vision and Wanda suffering a miscarriage and imagining a fake family for them. So, not exactly a feel-good summer romp then. What did that other comic book villain say? What doesn't kill you makes you stranger? That proves true for Doctor Strange, who's coming into this movie with a full mastery of his powers. Apparently, he was trapped in that time loop a lot longer than we saw, which gave him time to perfect the skills. Alright, let's talk about who's not in this movie. It might be faster. Sadly, the Defenders won't be making an appearance, but it's not for lack of trying. The Russos considered bridging them in, but deemed it impossible considering the sheer amount of characters and directors they were already coordinating with. The Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. unfortunately won't be making their big screen debut this time around either. However, the collateral damage of the event will impact the show. As the only TV series influenced by the movies, it's a hard thing to avoid. Michael Rooker was spotted on set, but denied his involvement, which of course meant he was in it. When we saw his character died in Guardians 2, however, it was deemed he was just pulling our leg. The Russos began as comedy directors, and they love slipping in Easter eggs from their old projects. Winter Soldier featured Community's Danny Pudi, Civil War had the stair car from Arrested Development, and the new film will undoubtedly have some kind of gag from the Michael Hurwitz show as well, so keep your eyes peeled. Post-credit scenes have become a staple of the MCU, but Infinity War almost didn't have one. Without going into much detail, the Russo brothers revealed that they didn't think they had to do one. Coming in at 149 minutes, Infinity War is the longest MCU movie to date. So, pro tip, don't have a big drink when you see it. Unlike the Russo brothers' previous Marvel outings, Infinity War will have a slew of deleted scenes, almost as big as the cast. This is because they played with all the character interactions in the writing and allowed improv on the set, leading to an excess of material. In honor of the 10th anniversary of the MCU, all the stars and directors assembled for a class photo. A reunion so star-studded you could probably see it from space. Infinity War marks the 10-year anniversary of the Marvel Cinematic Universe, almost to the day. The first MCU flick, Iron Man, came out on May 2nd, 2008, just a few days before this movie hits theaters. The April/May release date isn't just a point of tradition. Kevin Feige has confessed that the various national holidays that occur around this time of year spur moviegoers to the theaters. Iron Man 2 and Thor both enjoyed this boost, and it's been in practice ever since. The film's original premiere date, May 4th, 2018, would have been 6 years after the original Avengers. Time flies when no it doesn't, I've been waiting forever for this. The release date was knocked forward to April 27th, thanks to Robert Downey Jr. The MCU godfather had a fun Twitter exchange with Marvel in which he recommended the earlier release, and you just can't say no to that face. He's Iron Man. So why'd the date change? The dominating theory is that Disney did not want Deadpool 2 and Solo, two of its own May releases, getting cannibalized by Infinity War's popularity. We can only see so many movies, guys, damn. This is the second time an Avengers movie was immediately followed by an Ant-Man movie. The original Paul Rudd adventure came out next after Age of Ultron, wrapping up Phase 2. It's still not really clear what Ant-Man and the Wasp is actually about based on the trailer, but the Russos have indicated that elements of it will directly tie into Infinity War. That led many to believe they're on a secret mission. Infinity War is the 7th installment of the MCU's Phase 3, with only Ant-Man and the Wasp, Captain Marvel, and Avengers 4 before the phase's conclusion. Infinity War is the 19th film in the Marvel Cinematic Universe overall. Here's to another 19, guys! Pre-sale tickets for Infinity War already outsold the sales for the previous 7 Marvel movies combined. Talk about being better than the sum of your parts. The Russo brothers will also be directing the 4th Avengers movie, which began production immediately after the 3rd. Ain't no rest for the super. Infinity War and the as-of-yet unnamed 4th Avengers movie were announced during the Part 1, Part 2 craze that dominated blockbusters. As such, they were originally slated to be 2 halves of this movie. They later dropped the subtitles. According to Kevin Feige, they're 2 distinct movies, not one story cut in half. Justice League, DC's team-up film, also tried the Part 1, Part 2 approach and backed out of it before release. As of now, the 4th Avengers movie is still unnamed. The Russos want people to watch and take in Infinity War before they start speculating on the next movie, which likely means the title is at least part spoiler. Like Avengers, Iron Man just died.
Of course, how could Infinity War happen without Captain America Civil War? Yeah, this one broke the internet too. I remember all those memes. So many memes, so many people picking sides, so many big reveals that altered the Marvel Cinematic Universe as we knew it. So of course we did a 107 Facts video. From May of 2016, here's 107 Captain America Civil War facts that you should know.
Another day, another massive superhero summer blockbuster. Right now, Marvel is the king of the genre, sorry said Ben Affleck, and this year they're bringing Civil War to the people. That is Captain America Civil War. The follow-up love child of Winter Soldier and Age of Ultron, Civil War has been highly anticipated not only for the fights, oh sweet baby the fights, but for the film's introduction of countless fan-favorite characters. I'm Neil McNeil with Cinematica, and today we're going deep into Marvel's latest installment, Civil War. Are you a die-hard fan or just wondering why everyone keeps talking about this movie? Well, we've got something for everyone as we count down the 107 facts you should know about Captain America Civil War. Let's get started. Number 1. On October 28, 2014, Kevin Feige, the president of Marvel Studios, announced their plan for Phase 3. The films were Doctor Strange, Guardians of the Galaxy 2, Thor Ragnarok, Black Panther, Avengers Infinity War Parts 1 and 2, Captain Marvel Inhumans, and Captain America Serpent Society. Wait, what the what? Marvel has been prone to having certain secrets leak out since the Marvel Cinematic Universe was first established, so they went with the Serpent Society title as a joke to throw off fans. Number 2. The later revealed Captain America Civil War is going to be the 13th installment in the Marvel Cinematic Universe and kicks off Phase 3. Talk about starting out with a bang. Number 3, the title and plotline are based on the popular Civil War storyline in the comics, which spanned multiple issues, series, and writers that pitted nearly every Marvel character against each other, thanks to Captain America and Iron Man's squabble. Like Age of Ultron, the movie is condensing the events quite a bit, but kept the core conflict between the heroes as the focal point. Number 4, the film will be directed by Anthony and Joe Russo. They previously directed Captain America: The Winter Soldier, which was their film directorial debut. The brothers also had a hand in making one of the best TV shows of all time, Community. Number 5, tonally, Civil War will have the same feeling as Winter Soldier, which the captain himself, Chris Evans, has described as superhero movies with grounded elements instead of grounded movies with superhero elements. We'll see how well the tone works with the Magic AF's Scarlet Witch and Vision flying around all grounded. Number 6, Joe Russo stated that films like Seven, Fargo, and even The Godfather were influences on Civil War, saying that smashing unlikely genres into each other keeps the movie from feeling stale. Number 7, he also said Captain America: Civil War is a love story between Cap and Bucky? It really brings their bromance to the surface once again. No wonder Iron Man is so upset. This is a bro love triangle. Number 8, the Russo brothers have called betrayal the main theme of the film. They wanted a more exciting theme than politics and platitudes. Wow, love, betrayal, politics, it's like Romeo and Juliet with superheroes. Number 9, the film was written by Christopher Marcus and Stephen McFeely. They had previously collaborated on the other 2 Cap films and Thor: The Dark World, along with creating Agent Carter. Number 10, the writers have stated that they will be playing around with certain relationships that are present in the comics, such as Captain America and Sharon Carter, and the Scarlet Witch and Vision. That's right, the Scarlet Witch and a robot. She got metal fever. Number 11, by the way, the Russo brothers Marcus and McFeely will be working together again on the Avengers: Infinity War, which is rumored to have 67 characters appearing. Good luck with that, guys. Number 12, some of the cast members have said that with all the characters coming together, Civil War is like a prologue to Infinity War. The comparisons to Dawn of Justice continue. Number 13, on February 10th, 2015, Sony Pictures and Marvel came together in an agreement that allows Spider-Man to appear in Captain America's Civil War. While Sony wasn't making any money off of Civil War, they can and will be putting other MCU characters in their subsequent Spider-Man releases. That means everyone wins and nobody's fighting anymore. Well, not everyone. Take a hint, Cap and Tony. Number 14, the production start date was April 27th, 2015. That's just a little over a year before its release date on May 6, 2016. Number 15, the film was shot under the working title Sputnik. Number 16, there was a meta war outside of the movie, Batman vs. Superman vs. Civil War. In June of 2013, Marvel Studios announced that they would be releasing a film on May 6, 2016, later revealing that the date belonged to Captain America 3. A year later, things got a little goofy when Batman vs. Superman was delayed until 2016 and decided to release on May 6th as well. After months of playing release date chicken, DC finally caved and the date was changed to March 25th, 2016. Number 17, courtesy of the second Civil War trailer, we got some pretty intriguing stats from the last couple of films. The destruction stats for the Battle of New York were $18.8 billion of damage and 74 lives lost. The destruction stats for Captain America: Winter Soldier's collapse of S.H.I.E.L.D. were $2.8 billion in damage and 23 lives lost. Man, the MCU is a dangerous place. Everyone just go and get normal jobs. Number 18, is this the end for Captain America? Well, technically. Despite its Avengers-sized scale, Civil War will also be serving as the final installment of the Captain America trilogy, wrapping up its storylines that began in the first Avenger. What could that possibly mean for Cap's fate? Number 19, well, we'll tell you. Chris Evans is contracted through both Infinity Wars, so it's pretty safe to say that Cap is gonna make it out alive. Then again, Civil War is a dangerous storyline for him. More on that shortly. Number 20, Robert Downey Jr. was originally not supposed to appear in this film because he only had 2 films left on his contract. However, since this is the beginning of a new phase, Marvel Studios wanted to start it off right. I imagine his $40 billion and rising paycheck doesn't hurt either. Number 21, Downey wouldn't have been in the movie at all if it wasn't for Kevin Feige usurping Marvel CEO Ike Perlmutter and the Marvel Cinematic Committee. Perlmutter fought against Downey's inclusion in the movie, and he and the committee tried to scale down the whole project in general. Kevin Feige held steadfast though until Marvel CEO Bob Iger overruled Perlmutter and rearranged the corporate structure so that Feige could do whatever he wanted. Wait, are you saying there was a Civil War within Marvel about Civil War? That is so meta. Number 22, wondering where Iron Man 4 is? Robert Downey Jr. has stated that Civil War is his little Iron Man 4. I guess that means he stole this movie? If so, this means war. Number 23, Iron Man really isn't the bad guy of the movie. The writers wanted to ensure that both heroes' points were legit enough that by the end, people would still be split on whether they were Team Cap or Team Iron Man. Number 24, the reception to Scarlett Johansson's role in Age of Ultron was a bit of a mixed bag, but Johansson herself says that the scrutiny is what keeps the role interesting. Going into Civil War, she says Black Widow has really figured out what she wants and how to get it, and seemingly it's not to be stuck in the middle of a super dick measuring contest. Number 25, even though there were so many hands and opinions on the creation of these movies, the actors still get some creative control when it comes to their characters. Scarlett Johansson, for instance, has been Black Widow since 2009, so if she ever thinks that there's a line Natasha wouldn't say, she's probably right, and you shouldn't question Black Widow. Number 26, we have Breaking Bad to thank for Black Widow's story arc in Civil War. Vince Gilligan, the writer of Breaking Bad, was really into writing himself into a corner with his characters, yet somehow he would solve the equation every single week and give us dynamic and compelling character work. They applied this approach when it came to Black Widow, avoiding the easy approach by sticking her on Team Iron Man, and forcing themselves to figure out how to justify that move. Number 27, this isn't the last we'll be seeing of Sebastian Stan. He has an insane 9-movie contract with Marvel. That's more movies than are planned right now. Man, those guys at Marvel get you for life. Number 28, Anthony Mackie returns as Falcon, but if you asked him, he might say he's playing quail or pheasant. Since Falcon's wings are CGI, he really only has a small pair of practical wings with him on set that are about 3 feet long. So he really doesn't have the majestic Falcon wingspan that we see on the big screen. Number 29, before all of the beefing up in post-production, things get pretty silly looking on set. Says Anthony Mackie, they're like, we need you to run. But before you break into a full run, pop your arms out so that your wings can extend and you'll fly. And that humiliation, kids, is how movie magic is made. Number 30, ever wonder what Falcon does in his free time? Well, Anthony Mackie doesn't. In an interview, he stated that nobody comes to Marvel movies to see personal life subplots. He jokes that Falcon would just be sitting at a coffee shop or on Tinder most of the time. Number 31, in the film, the Falcon will use a Falcon drone called Red Wing. In the comics, Red Wing is an actual Falcon. I'm guessing the drone is a little easier to train. Number 32, from the trailers, things don't appear to be going all too well for War Machine. The question on everyone's mind is, will he survive Civil War? Think back to the Winter Soldier trailer though, when we were asking the same question about Nick Fury, and that all worked out just fine. See, you can all sleep well tonight knowing that Rhodey is safe. Maybe. Who knows? We'll see. Number 33, Hawkeye will be presenting a whole new range of skills for this movie, including the addition of a staff to his otherwise bow-centric arsenal. That's because he probably isn't trying to kill anyone this go around, so I guess exploding arrows are out of the question. Number 34, looks like Hawkeye's outfit finally got a bit of color. Purple, to be precise. It's not as bright as the character's comic counterpart, but look, even a little purple is a lot of purple. And Hawkeye doesn't want to walk around looking like Grimace. Number 35, the movie marks the very first live-action appearance of Black Panther, played by Chadwick Boseman. Woohoo! About time. Number 36, before being cast as Black Panther, Boseman had a handful of roles in big movies like 42, Draft Day, Gods of Egypt, and as James Brown in Get On Up. Fingers crossed we'll get to hear the Wakandan superhero do a rendition of a James Brown song. Number 37, for those not in the comic book know, Black Panther's real name is T'Challa. He becomes the king of Wakanda after his father dies. The nation of Wakanda is also the only place you can find vibranium, which is the fictional element that is used to make Captain America's shield.
The most versatile substance on the planet. And they used it to make a frisbee.
In fact, Black Panther's suit is made up of the same alloy. Number 38, Black Panther's costume is a combination of practical costume and visual effects. The method last brought to us by the non-Marvel non-hero hero, Deadpool. Number 39, to prepare himself for the role as Black Panther, Boseman read as many storylines involving the character as he can get his claws on. He even traveled to South Africa to incorporate some real-world cultural aspects. Good luck, Cap. This guy does not sound like he messes around. Number 40, Black Panther is also bringing the feels to set. When Chadwick Boseman stepped out on set decked out in his costume for the first time, many of the true blue comic fans started to tear up. This was a character that so many people have pulled for such a long time. Number 41, according to Kevin Feige, part of the reason that introducing Black Panther was so important was to have a character with completely fresh eyes on the situation. Someone who hasn't, been responsible for billions of dollars worth of damage. Number 42, Civil War will be the jumping off point for Black Panther's solo film. We already got a taste of his world involved in Age of Ultron with the introduction of Vibranium and Ulysses Claw, played by Andy Serkis. Number 43, Elizabeth Olsen has joked that she hasn't had to do a lot of training to play Scarlet Witch because ultimately, if Scarlet Witch wants you dead, you're gonna die. She does, however, work with a choreographer to make her magical moves look more wavy and mystic. Number 44, here's an appropriately ant-sized Easter egg from Ant-Man. When he invades the Avengers facility, there are some brand new buildings that weren't there in Age of Ultron. Apparently, we'll get to see those buildings up close and personal in Civil War. Number 45, Emily Von Camp will reprise her role as Agent 13, aka Sharon Carter, aka Peggy's niece. When we first met her character in Winter Soldier, there actually wasn't any indication that she was related to the Agent Carter. It would, however, explain why Cap seems so into her. Number 46, in the comics, Agent 13 was originally written as Peggy's younger sister, but that was later revamped due to the changes in their time periods. Number 47, the 6 finalists for the role of Peter Parker were Tom Holland, Asa Butterfield, Judah Lewis, Matt Lintz, Charlie Plummer, and Charlie Rowe. Asa Butterfield was about to get the part when he admitted that he would never be able to keep Marvel's secrets. After the exhaustive search on June 23, 2015, Tom Holland was reported to have landed the role, and the entire world said, who? Number 48, so how does one nab the role of the spectacular Spider-Man? You get some help from Thor himself, Chris Hemsworth. Chris worked with the newcomer Tom Holland on the Ron Howard film In the Heart of the Sea, and had nothing but high praise for Holland's work ethic. It also didn't hurt that Holland has a gymnastics background, though a dance background might not hurt either. Number 49, Tom Holland is the youngest person to ever portray Spider-Man and Peter Parker at age 19. Wow, a teenager actually playing a teenager? Groundbreaking. Number 50, Tom Holland and John Bernthal, who plays the Punisher in Netflix's Daredevil series, helped each other film their audition tapes for their respective roles while shooting a movie together. Number 51, speaking of the Punisher, what's he up to during all of this? Well, in the comics, Castle stays out of the whole squabble until some villains come together as pro-registration. This pushes him to Cap's side, who pushes him right back out due to their difference in morals. Number 52, Holland says that screen testing with the legendary actors was intimidating, but that Robert Downey Jr. took him aside and told him, listen, I remember my screen test for Iron Man. I remembered how terrified I was. Just think of it as an audition. It's nothing too scary. If you get it wrong, we'll just start again. No pressure. Well, damn, no wonder that kid is Team Iron Man. That's amazing. Number 53, Spidey's costume is based on the original 1960s version, complete with web shooters. And the small spider logo is reminiscent of Steve Ditko's run of Spider-Man. His eyes focus like the lens of a camera, which plays to Peter's first love. No, not Gwen Stacy or Mary Jane, but his camera. Number 54, Tom Holland never read the script of Civil War because he knew he would spill all of the secrets of the film in interviews. Whatever you gotta do to appease the Marvel bigwigs, I guess. Number 55, while it was thought that Spidey was only swinging in for a brief cameo, it turns out he racks up a half an hour of screen time. That's about 1/5 of the movie. Number 56, in the comics, Spider-Man plays a central role in Civil War, torn between his 2 role models. He sides with Iron Man at first and ended up revealing his secret identity to the world to support Stark's movement. However, eventually he comes to switch sides and join Cap. What will you do, movie Spider-Man? Number 57, Frank Grillo will be reprising his role as Brock Rumlow from Captain America: The Winter Soldier, only this time he'll be a lot scarier and masked and named Crossbones. In the comics, Crossbones serves Red Skull, but in this movie it looks like he's just out for revenge. Number 58, in the comics, a brainwashed Agent 13 and Crossbones are ordered to assassinate Captain America. After Cap is shot, Crossbones escapes but is tracked down, beaten up, and captured by the Winter Soldier and Falcon. Wait, all those people are in this movie. Frank Grillo did deny that his character would be echoing his comic book counterpart though, yet Cap, run. Number 59, fortunately it has been stated that there is no mind control in Civil War. This is a welcome change not only for Agent 13, but for all of the Avengers who have dealt with brainwashing during pretty much all of their big get-togethers.
Done the whole mind control thing. Not a fan.
Number 60, General Thaddeus Thunderbolt Ross will make his first appearance in the MCU since 2008's The Incredible Hulk. The Russos wanted to bring him back to form a connection to the often neglected side of the Marvel Universe. He's the first leading character from that movie to reappear played by the same actor. Not even the Hulk did that. Number 61, that's right, William Hurt reprises his role. Since The Incredible Hulk, he's had scattered appearances on TV shows like Damages, Humans, and Trial. His mustache, however, has only grown stronger. Number 62, the Russos have compared Ross to Colin Powell. a military man gone political. They stressed how his military background has given him a natural disdain for superheroes. I mean, do you remember those damage statistics? Superheroes are crazy. Number 63, the main villain of this film is being played by Daniel Bruhl. He was in the film Inglourious Basterds as the Nazi soldier turned actor. In Civil War, he plays Baron Zemo, and that's all he's allowed to say about that. Number 64, in the comics, the barony of the Zemos is a legacy dating back all the way to the 1500s. This particular Baron Zemo wears a mask because he's had a nasty run-in with the chemical adhesive X, causing his face to be literally adhered to the inside of the mask. It seems like in Civil War, he'll most likely be taking the place of Red Skull from the comics. In the comics, he's also the one who outs Bucky Barnes as the Winter Soldier. Gasp! Scandal! Number 65, Martin Freeman also has a role because who doesn't in this movie? He'll play Everett Ross, an ally of Black Panther in the comics and a member of the Joint Counter-Terrorism Center. It seems that he won't be taking any sides in this movie, but instead playing a more ambiguous part to springboard into future installments. Number 66, this one goes out to my Sherlock Holmes fans. Martin Freeman also depicts Watson in Sherlock, and his Sherlock, Benedict Cumberbatch, is Doctor Strange. Also, Robert Downey Jr. played Sherlock Holmes in the movie series. What does this all mean? I don't know, but it's beautiful. Number 67, I bet you're thinking to yourself, where are the Hulk and Thor during this whole mess? Well, for one, they will apparently be busy going on a cosmic road trip together in Thor Ragnarok. The main reason, though, is that the war would end in about 15 seconds if Hulk joined either side because Hulk smash. It's simple science. Number 68, Mark Ruffalo, the Jolly Green Giant himself, has given another explanation. He says that the Hulk was actually in the film at one point, but they pulled him out in order to save the reveal for where he went off at the end of Age of Ultron and why. Number 69, Evangeline Lilly's The Wasp was also in early versions of the script, but was cut because they didn't want her to get lost in the vast sea of characters the movie already needed to focus on. Apparently they're saving her for a movie where she gets to have more focus on herself and have a more explorable dynamic with Scott Lang. Number 70, Samuel L. Jackson was surprised to discover that Nick Fury wouldn't be appearing in Civil War since the Russos had told him that he would be. Jackson is still under contract for a couple more movies, so expect him to make an appearance again real soon. Number 71, getting to a little bit of spoiler territory here, apparently we'll be seeing Peggy Carter's funeral in Civil War. No sign of Haley Atwell herself though, unfortunately. Well, I guess now we're gonna find out how Agent Carter ends. Number 72, Gwyneth Paltrow is also set to return briefly as Tony's main squeeze, Pepper Potts, after sitting out all of the other big Avengers gatherings. Gee, I wonder what team she's a part of. Number 73, one of the biggest rumors surrounding this film, now that we know Spidey is in it, is that Daredevil from the Netflix series will also make an appearance. Charlie Cox stated in an interview that he would be thrilled to be a part of the film, and we'd be thrilled to see him there too. Maybe Cap needs a good lawyer? Number 74, so what about the other Defenders? Well, in the comics, Jessica Jones takes Luke Cage's and her child to Canada to keep them away from the war, while Cage stays back and fights on Cap's side. Doesn't look like we'll be seeing him in this movie though, but if you're jonesing for some Luke Cage, his series is right around the corner. Number 75, actress Alfre Woodard is set to appear in both Luke Cage and Civil War. Unfortunately, she's going to be playing two different characters. On the Netflix series, she's Mariah Dillard, whereas she'll be playing a grieving mother from Sokovia in the movie. How are you explaining this mess, Marvel? Multiverse? I'm gonna go with multiverse. Number 76, Jim Rash, aka the Dean on Community, also has a role in the movie. The Russo brothers previously gave a cameo role to fellow Community alum Danny Pudi back in Winter Soldier. Number 77, with the film's cast being as insanely massive as it is, many people have been starting to call this movie Avengers 2.5, and a handful of people are already saying it's a better Avengers movie than Age of Ultron. Number 78, the Russo brothers stand by the fact that this is a through and through red, white, and blue Captain America movie, not an Avengers movie. Both its tone and its Cap-centric focus are what distinguish it from a typical Avengers outing, with some other characters mainly passing through Cap's story. Look, guys, say whatever you want, we just want to see a bunch of heroes beat the crap out of each other. Number 79, producer Nate Moore confesses that they tried to involve the characters as organically as possible, since throwing in a bunch of characters for the sake of it has never really worked out well for anyone. Glad someone's learned something from Spider-Man 3, and Amazing Spider-Man 2, and Batman vs. Superman. Number 80, the Russo brothers say that the movie takes place more or less in real time. meaning Civil War is set about a year after Age of Ultron. That means that the new Avengers have had a bit of experience in avenging by now. Number 81, as was the case with Age of Ultron, the timeline of this movie has been severely condensed. So Age of Ultron was really more like Week of Ultron, and Civil War will probably be more like Civil Handful of Battles. Number 82, the catalyst of the Civil War plotline in the comics kicked off with a villain named Nitro and the New Warriors. During the battle, Nitro exploded, which killed the entire team and 60 civilians. This became the event that pushed the government towards finally putting forth the Superhero Registration Act. The act's main focus was to have heroes expose their secret identities to the government, with Iron Man advocating for the act and Cap against it, much like their positions in the movie adaptation. Being that secret identities aren't really a huge thing in the MCU though, they replaced the Registration Act with the Sokovia Accords. Number 83, the first scene of the trailer may look a little bit familiar to you. It's the same scene from the ending credits of Ant-Man. Number 84, for Cap's barehanded helicopter grab as seen in the first trailer, Chris Evans was actually straining against a crane holding up a helicopter. Number 85, so Team Cap is Winter Soldier, Falcon, Hawkeye, Scarlet Witch, Ant-Man, and Finn from Star Wars. Yes, John Boyega said that in an interview, he is on Team Cap all the way. Number 86, what's the initiation process for New Avengers? According to Anthony Mackie, it's old-fashioned hazing in the form of swirlies, nuggies, Indian rug burns, especially on Elizabeth Olsen. Nah, he's probably just kidding, but they do seem to bully the new recruits. I guess it builds character. Number 87, when Iron Man orders Captain America to stay down and Cap quips,
I could do this all day.
It's a callback to the answer he gives to the bully at the beginning of Captain America, the First Avenger. Aw, those were the good old days. Number 88, this is the first live-action studio film where Spider-Man's special effects were not done by a studio affiliated with Sony. Instead, Industrial Light and Magic has the job. They're this little upstart company, you know, a couple okay credits in their name. I'm totally kidding. They handle all the special effects for Star Wars. Mic drop. Number 89, with a superhero film as big as this one, there has got to be an event in the comic books to coincide with the release. In this instance, we get Civil War II. The event, written by Brian Michael Bendis, centers around a new character who has the power to calculate the outcome of future events with a high degree of accuracy. You may have heard of that power before. It kind of sounds like a superhero Minority Report. But Bendis promises that this is only the jumping off point. The two leaders in this Civil War are Captain Marvel, leading the charge to use the powers to stop crime and attacks before they can happen, against Iron Man, who believes that the punishment cannot come before the crime. So technically, it's Cap versus Iron Man all over again. Number 90, on March 13th, Marvel Studios partnered with the National Academy of Sciences Science and Entertainment Exchange to create the Marvel Girls Reforming the Future Challenge program. The program is for girls ages 15 to 18 and in grades 10 through 12 to submit projects that they believe can change the world. The 5 finalists traveled to California to present their projects and then were then invited to hit the red carpet at the Civil War world premiere in Hollywood. One girl will win the grand prize, an internship with Marvel Studios. Number 91, remember those awesome Marvel one-shots that used to be packed with every Marvel film release? The Russo brothers have been strategizing on the best way to bring them back. Their thought is to bring them back into the digital age by putting them on YouTube, and mention that we might be able to expect a new release in honor of Infinity War. Number 92, a life tip for heavily costumed actors on set: never be a superhero in Georgia. Every one of them has complained about the heat and how much worse it's made by whatever crazy armor or spandex the wardrobe department decides to put on them. Number 93, the first trailer was released on November 24th, 2015. The trailer broke the record for the most views for a Marvel trailer in 24 hours with 61 million. Number 94, while Winter Soldier was a political thriller, Civil War has been called a psychological thriller that will change the whole psychology of the Marvel Cinematic Universe. Number 95, several theater chains put together another crazy Marvel marathon before Civil War's debut. Back to back, the titles include Captain America: The First Avenger, The Avengers, Captain America: The Winter Soldier, and Age of Ultron. That's 546 minutes. With Civil War to cap it all off, it brings it up to a total of 693 minutes of Marvel butt kicking. Number 96, the climactic scene at the airport, you know, the Civil War part of Civil War, was shot completely in IMAX. It's about a 15-minute battle shot on the Ares 65. John Russo compared the battle to a live-action splash panel. Number 97, this movie will be the first ever shot with IMAX and Ari's newest 2D digital camera, which is especially an honor considering how selective IMAX is with renting out its devices. If anyone deserves that honor though, it's Disney and Marvel. Number 98, the showdowns in this movie are inspired by old westerns. Cue the tumbleweeds. Number 99, hey comic fans, this one's for you. The scene where Ant-Man is boosted by one of Hawkeye's arrows is a straight up adaptation from the comic, The Avengers number 223. Number 100, before the release of this movie, various toy sets revealed that Ant-Man would be going through a pretty gigantic transformation. Literally, he'll be turning into Giant Man in this movie, the result of reversing the shrinking process using some of his science or whatevers. Number 101, how do you keep a Marvel fanboy up at night? The Russos have figured it out. They have promised that the ending is, quote, controversial, causing an epidemic of mass speculation and fan theorizing. Fact number 102, the film's full runtime is 2 hours and 26 minutes, officially making it the longest Marvel movie so far. Number 103, as with all Marvel films, you must stay for after the credits. Captain America Civil War is rumored to have not 1, not 2, but 3 post-credit scenes. Number 104, Captain America Civil War is expected to make $163 million in its opening weekend. And with the massive number of heroes in this movie, it will be making something similar to an Avengers film in the box office. Number 105, the initial reviews have been pretty stellar so far. Highly praised are Chadwick Boseman as Black Panther and Tom Holland as Spider-Man, as well as the crazy IMAX fight scene. So pretty much all of the things that we're hyped about. Number 106, if afterwards you feel like you haven't gotten your full Civil War fix after the film, a video game version of it was made in 2009 entitled Marvel Ultimate Alliance 2. This game was based off the Civil War storyline from the comics. And finally, fact number 107, another video game that ties into Civil War was LEGO Marvel's The Avengers. There's a DLC pack which doesn't contain any new levels because, you know, spoilers, but it does have 9 new playable characters, including Agent 13, Black Panther, Captain America, Crossbones, Falcon, Iron Man Mach 46, Scarlet Witch, War Machine, and the Winter Soldier. You can make your own cute little LEGO Civil War. He's my friend, Lego Tony. So was I, Lego Steve.
Before we could even have the Avengers infighting, America's ass had to beat up a bunch of dudes in an elevator. That's just how it works. Praised as both a fun superhero movie and as a tense espionage thriller, this movie had a lot going for it. I have fond memories of watching it on someone's laptop in my dorm's common room. We knew folks were clamoring for more info on Bucky and co, because let's be real, Bucky's the star of this one. So we put together 107 Captain America the Winter Soldier facts you should know. This one had a little help from Comicstorian too.
After the smashing success of the first Avenger, the Captain is back at it in the Winter Soldier. This time, he's got some old friends and new enemies. Adjusting to the 21st century isn't easy for our hero, especially when part of it involves fighting off assassins and uncovering government conspiracies. I'm Benny with Cinematica, and today we're going to be taking a deep dive into Cap's second solo flick. Are you a diehard fan? Just wondering what all the fuss is about? Well, we've got something for everyone as we count down the 107 facts you should know about Captain America Winter Soldier. Let's get started. Number 1, Winter Soldier is based on the 2005 comic by Ed Brubaker and focuses on Captain America going head-to-head with friend-turned-enemy Bucky Barnes, aka the Winter Soldier. Number 2, writing for the film began around the time of the release of the first Captain America movie. Screenwriters Christopher Marcus and Stephen McFeely wanted to make a different kind of Captain America film this time around. Number 3, the film was directed by Joe and Anthony Russo. They were specifically chosen for the job by Marvel Studios president Kevin Feige. Number 4, after choosing the Russo brothers to direct, F. Gary Gray, who directed The Italian Job, and George Nolfi, who directed The Adjustment Bureau, were also considered. Number 5, the Russo brothers were always interested in directing big action films, but before this they were mostly known for directing comedy television shows such as Community and Arrested Development. Number 6, the Russo brothers wanted to make a slightly darker themed movie and were influenced by movies from the 70s, including The French Connection. Number 7, the Russo brothers are no strangers to the Marvel superheroes. Joe Russo in particular is a longtime fan of comic books and began collecting at the age of 10. Number 8, in order to get a better understanding of Captain America and the other characters in the film, the Russo brothers worked with Ed Brubaker, the comics writer, on the story before beginning production on the film. Number 9, The Winter Soldier is the 9th film in the Marvel Cinematic Universe, though obviously far from the last. Number 10, the film almost dropped the name Winter Soldier entirely when producers were worried that it might give too much of the story away. The Russos fought for the title though, stating, "We've always said there isn't much of a surprise to the audience, it's a surprise for Captain America. It's a crucial moment in the movie for him as a character." Number 11, production on the film began even before the release of Iron Man 3. Marvel doesn't waste time, folks. Number 12. To avoid any information about the film being leaked during production, the cast and crew used the working title Freezer Burn. Number 13. Winter Soldier technically takes place in Phase 2 of the Marvel Universe. This means everything post-New York City attack in the first Avengers film. On a timeline, the movie takes place a year after the Avengers, before Avengers 2, and after both Thor 2 and Iron Man 3. Number 14. Chris Evans was excited about the creative change for Winter Soldier, stating that he felt limited in the previous incarnations. He said it's tricky because he's a Boy Scout. His main goal in life is to put his own interests last. He doesn't have a brooding side. He's not Bruce Wayne or Wolverine. Number 15. Hawkeye was very close to being included in the film, but the writers thought that there were too many characters already. A scene was written and shot that mentioned the Avenger and his whereabouts, but it was ultimately cut from the film. Number 16. There is a small nod to Hawkeye in the form of a small arrow necklace worn by Natasha Romanoff. This idea came straight from the character's actress, Scarlett Johansson. Number 17. Despite being a Captain America film, there are many sub-stories focusing on the superhero agency S.H.I.E.L.D., earning the film the nickname Avengers 1.5. Number 18. The original draft of the film relied very heavily on flashbacks to tell the story, but the screenwriters found this to be very difficult to follow. In the end, they decided to keep 98% of the film in the present day, while adding only a few flashbacks when really needed. Number 19. The screenwriters purposefully wrote the film in a way that could be enjoyed by someone even if they hadn't seen the previous Captain America or Avengers films. Number 20. The Winter Soldier, who much of this film is focused on, made his first appearance in Captain America Volume 5, number 1 in 2005. Number 21. The Winter Soldier in this film is also known as Bucky Barnes in the comics, though his backstory is very different from the films. Bucky's origins in the comics have him as a young teenager who witnessed Captain America changing into his costume. Wanting to protect his identity, Captain America allowed the young boy to become his sidekick. Number 22. Another liberty taken by the film was naming the character Bucky Barnes. In the comic, Bucky is an alias, not the sidekick's real name. It's actually James Buchanan, and Captain America nicknames him Bucky after an old friend. Bucky would eventually be killed off before being resurrected and turned into the Winter Soldier. Number 23. The comic Winter Soldier gets its name from a quote by Thomas Paine where he mentions summer soldiers or soldiers who quit things when they get tough. The implication is that a Winter Soldier never quits no matter what. Number 24. Sebastian Stan plays the role of Bucky Barnes, the Winter Soldier. Stan didn't know that he was being brought back to play the role until he was called by a friend from Comic-Con who saw Marvel announce the film. Surprise! Number 25. To prepare for his role, Stan went through 5 months of training and historical research on the Cold War, KGB, brainwashing, and more. Number 26. He also apparently walked around practicing using a plastic knife so that his movements would feel more natural when acting. Number 27. Despite being the title of the film, the Winter Soldier isn't introduced until 32 minutes into the film. Number 28. Agent 13, or Sharon Carter, shares the same last name as Captain America's previous love interest, Peggy Carter. In the comics, the two are related, usually sisters or aunt and niece. Any kind of blood relationship between the characters was never defined in the film. Number 29. Many actresses were considered for the role of Agent 13, including Anna Kendrick, Felicity Jones, and Alison Brie, just to name a few. Number 30. Alexander Pierce is played by acting legend Robert Redford. Redford is partially responsible for starting the Sundance Film Festival in Utah, where a lot of filmmakers get their start, including Joe and Anthony Russo. Number 31. The Winter Soldier is also heavily inspired by the film 3 Days of Condor, which starred none other than Robert Redford himself. Number 32. One of the reasons that Redford took on the role was because his grandchildren are huge fans of the Marvel films, and he was excited for them to see him in one. Number 33. When Alexander Pierce opens his fridge, you can see a jar of Newman's Own Sauce, the company founded by Paul Newman. Newman and Redford were friends and partners in Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid. Number 34. The picture of Pierce from 1992 used in the film is actually a movie still of Redford's character from the 1992 movie Sneakers. Number 35. In Steve Rogers' apartment, there is a copy of the book All the President's Men. Redford produced and starred in the movie adaptation of this book. Life is all about connections, guys. Number 36. Anthony Mackie reportedly really wanted to play a Marvel comic book character and emailed the studio several times in hopes of landing a character. Luckily, Kevin Feige eventually responded and offered him the role of Falcon. Number 37. The directors made the decision to shoot much of the film using longer lenses with less depth of field, which blurs the background a bit. The directors described it as more of a Scott Brothers look. Number 38. Much of the film was also shot handheld to get a much more aggressive and gritty feel to the movie, what they described as a visceral action and hardcore realism. Number 39. All in all, shooting took approximately 76 days on set to film. Number 40. The screenwriters were on set every day of shooting in case anything had to be rewritten, but the script was left largely untouched from the original production copy. Number 41. When asked why none of the other Avengers make appearances to help Cap, the screenwriters explained the film's story story takes place over the course of 3 days, and no other superheroes had time to respond and rush into his aid. Number 42, the fight scene with Captain America in the elevator took 7 days to film and was the first fight scene filmed for the movie. Number 43, one thing the Russo brothers insisted was focusing on practical effects and intense stunt work. The directors even asked all of the actors to train for their parts so they could do more in their own action scenes. Number 44, Chris Evans, who plays Captain America, went so far as to take several weeks of gymnastic classes to prepare for his role in the movie. Tumble like a champ, Cap. Number 45, Evans also underwent tons of mixed martial arts training for the film. Some fighting styles used include karate, Brazilian jiu-jitsu, and boxing. The filmmakers thought it would be important to use modern fighting styles to help bring the hero into the modern day. Number 46, the filmmakers also wanted to use this film to explore Captain America using his shield as a much more offensive weapon rather than being defensive. The shield was given 2 handles so that it could easily be used in an Eastern fighting style. Number 47, Evans and Johansson are good friends in real life. This film marked the 4th film that the two have worked on together, also clearly not the last. Number 48, the two apparently wrote their own dialogue for many of the scenes that they shared, making the chemistry between them more natural on screen. Evans said that his favorite moments were the scenes that he shared with Johansson. Aww. Number 49, the Falcon, who makes his movie debut in this film, made his first appearance in the comics in Captain America number 117 in 1969. He was mainstream comics' first African-American superhero. Number 50, the original Falcon of the comics had the power to communicate with birds. The films and the Ultimates comics that the films drew inspirations from have done away with this superpower entirely. Number 51, Mackie would always yell "cut the check" anytime he nailed anything in a scene. I think I'll try that at work next time whenever I do something well. Number 52, Mackie had a ton of wire work flying around as Falcon. Some of the scenes had him 70 feet in the air and landing on a spot no bigger than a tape mark. These aerial stunts were even more impressive once you discover that Mackie was deathly afraid of heights. Number 53, Mackie admits jokingly that he tried to sneak in a subtle plot point that the Falcon was in love with Black Widow. He says he didn't ask permission to do it and never told Johansson what he was going for. Number 54, in an interview, Mackie revealed that he was slightly disappointed in the Falcon's new costume. He was hoping for the red spandex that the hero wears in the comics. Number 55, Falcon's costume consists of several straps, buckles, and webbings that can be found in common military gear. It does take Mackie 25 minutes to fully don the outfit though. Number 56, Joe and Anthony Russo have gone on record stating that they hate Falcon's red costume and Pet Falcon, but Mackie insisted that he would get them in his next appearance. Number 57, there was a brief reveal of Captain America's list of things that he needs to catch up on that he missed while being a popsicle. The list actually changed depending on which country you saw the movie in. Number 58, in the US, the alternate scene includes I Love Lucy and Steve Jobs. In the UK, it has the Beatles and Sean Connery. In Australia, it has Steve Irwin and Tim Tams. Italy has Roberto Benigni. France has Daft Punk and The Fifth Element. Russia has Yuri Gagarin. South Korea has the movie Old Boy, and Mexico has Shakira, among others. Number 59, know what made the list for all of the countries? Star Wars and Star Trek, probably because they starred fellow Avengers actors Samuel L. Jackson and Chris Hemsworth. Number 60, the scenes that take place on the ship Lemurian Star were filmed on the real-life vessel Sea Launch Commander, which is docked in Long Beach, California. The tight spaces provided extra challenges for the fight choreographers, but the directors just couldn't pass up on the chance to film on an existing vessel. Number 61, in the film there is a brief mention of a person of interest named Stephen Strange.
Bruce Banner, Stephen Strange, anyone who's a threat.
This is the name of another Marvel superhero, Doctor Strange, who's receiving his own movie in the near future starring Benedict Cumberbatch. Number 62, there is also a mention of a man from Cairo, Egypt in this line, which could be a nod to Marvel's Moon Knight. Number 63, also there is a mention of a high school kid that could prove to be a problem for S.H.I.E.L.D., a reference to Spider-Man. Spider-Man is set to make an appearance in the upcoming Captain America Civil War movie. Number 64, the chase scene at the beginning of the film was supposed to take place around Washington, D.C., but signs found along the side road read US 6, US 322. These highways exist near Cleveland, not D.C. Number 65, that's because they actually filmed the scene in Cleveland. That action sequence required the freeway outside of Cleveland to be shut down completely for 2 weeks. Number 66, in the Hydra base, we can see photos of the 3 S.H.I.E.L.D. founders, Colonel Chester Phillips, Peggy Carter, and Howard Stark, played by Tommy Lee Jones, Haley Atwell, and Dominic Cooper in the first Captain America movie. Number 67, you would think that Winter Soldier could do some serious damage with that metal arm of his, but he only lands 9 hits on Captain America with it throughout the film, 7 of which Captain let him have. Number 68, when on set, the chairs for the actors wouldn't be labeled by the actors' names. Instead, they were identified by the names of the characters that they played. For example, Evans' chair read Steve Rogers. Number 69, when Nick Fury tells a story of how his grandfather was an elevator operator, it relates to real life for the actor, Samuel L. Jackson, whose grandfather really was an elevator operator. Number 70, Nick Fury's grave reads The Path of the Righteous Man, Ezekiel 25:17. This is in reference to the iconic line Jackson would say as his character, Jules Winfield, in Pulp Fiction. Number 71, when Black Widow boots boots up the supercomputer and asks, "Shall we play a game?" This references the 1983 sci-fi movie War Games. Number 72. Feige said that every Marvel Phase 2 movie includes an homage to Star Wars by having a character lose an arm or a hand. In Winter Soldier, we see that happens to Bucky after he fell off the train in the first Avenger. And yeah, there goes his arm. At least he got a cooler one, right? Number 73. When Captain America jumps out of the plane without a parachute, it's a reference to the near-identical scene from the Ultimates comic story showing him without a parachute in World War II. Number 74. Captain America is also seen sporting a different suit than the previous film. The suit is the super soldier costume used in the Secret Avengers storyline and meant to show a darker side to Captain for his role in S.H.I.E.L.D. Number 75. The suit is also used as another form of storytelling. Captain America has to struggle with the realities of the time, and the colors begin to fade. Number 76. This is the first film involving Steve Rogers in which he doesn't touch a firearm. Number 77. Nick Fury's outfit in his last scene of the movie is the exact same outfit that he wears in the season 1 finale of Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. Number 78. The name on Falcon's wings, Exo-7, is a reference to Exocet, a flying fish with shiny wings. Number 79. One of the names on the list of targets for the helicarrier is the Baxter Building, which is the home to yet another group of Marvel superheroes, the Fantastic Four. Number 80. There were originally plans to show Hydra's supercomputer downloading Zola's brain into a robot body, but it was ultimately cut from the film. This event would mirror the comics, and there would even be hints to it in the previous Captain America film. Number 81. Black Widow mentions Operation Paperclip at one point, calling it a S.H.I.E.L.D. operation. In reality, it was a large operation conducted by the American government in which hundreds of Nazi scientists were recruited. One of the most famous scientists was Werner von Braun, who designed the V-2, but went on to make the Saturn V rocket for the Apollo program. Number 82. The Captain America display probably would have been more at home in the National Museum of American History, no? Number 83. There were also several other landmarks from Washington, D.C. present in the film, such as the Jefferson Memorial, the Lincoln Memorial, the Capitol Building, the National Mall, and the DuPont Circle. The Theodore Roosevelt Bridge also appears in the film, which was shut down for the first time ever for a film production. Number 84. Because the filming took place in D.C., large crowds of people would gather to watch the film being made. Evans has said meeting with people in the crowds has been one of his favorite parts about filming in the city. Number 85. When Nick Fury is under fire, he gets a chance to escape after a yellow Penske truck crashes into his attackers. Later in the film, Agent Sitwell is hit by a yellow Penske truck. The Russo brothers have confirmed that the two trucks are the same, and possibly hinting at the driver being another Marvel character, Frank Castle, aka the Punisher. Number 86. There are several cameos throughout the film, and we're going to run some of them down for you. One instance is a voiceover on one of the exhibits in the museum that was actually done by actor Gary Sinise. Number 87. Joss Whedon, director of the Avengers films, makes a brief cameo in the escalator in the museum. Number 88. The museum hosts yet another cameo in the form of its security guard, played by none other than Stan Lee. Number 89. Joe Russo makes a brief appearance on screen as the doctor that came to Black Widow's aid in Nick Fury's underground cave. Number 90. Danny Pudi, who played Abed Nadir on Community, makes a brief cameo in the film as a S.H.I.E.L.D. technician. Number 91. There is yet another cameo in the scene where the Winter Soldier is being brainwashed. The goatee technician is Ed Brubaker, writer of the Winter Soldier comic series. Number 92. The character Senator Stern makes a second appearance in the Marvel Cinematic Universe in this film, his first appearance being in Iron Man 2. The revelation that he was in league with Hydra also proves that it was the remnants of Red Skull's forces that were after Iron Man in that film. Number 93. The Marvel character Batroc the Leaper makes an appearance in this film, played by former UFC welterweight champion George St. Pierre. Number 94. The tower shown with an A on it is not Stark Tower. Some fans thought the A stood for Anthony, aka Tony, but it was actually the fans' first look at the Avengers Tower. Number 95. There is a brief mention of something called Department H. Fans of the X-Men series may recognize this as the organization that experimented on Mutant Wolverine and is also responsible for the Marvel team Alpha Flight. Number 96. The scene where Steve learns what happened to his commandos and Peggy Carter was originally meant to be included in the first Avengers movies. In fact, there is over 30 minutes of deleted scenes from the Avengers revolving around Captain America, many of which were repurposed for the Winter Soldier. Number 97. At the end of the film, Brock Rumlow's body can be seen among the rubble sporting cross straps. It is widely thought that he will make a reappearance as Crossbones, a henchman of Red Skull. Number 98. Potential spoilers about the comics and possible upcoming movie plots. In the Captain America comics, Steve Rogers actually dies in a plot involving Red Skull, and the Winter Soldier takes his place to carry on his will. Number 99. There is some slight evidence that might suggest that the movies may follow this plot, such as when the Winter Soldier catches and then wields the shield. Number 100. Further evidence is that Evans only has a 6-movie contract with Marvel, presumably Captain America 1 through 3 and the 3 Avengers titles. Stan Sebastian, however, has 9 films in his contract. Number 101. This was the first Marvel movie to contain 2 after-credit scenes. The sequences reveal the twins Quicksilver and Scarlet Witch, who make their first official debut in the next Avengers movie, Avengers Age of Ultron. Number 102, Joe Russo is a fan of the YouTube series Honest Trailers. While working on the movie, the brothers tried to honest trailer-proof the movie so that the logic of the movie was as solid as possible. Unspoofable, if you will. Number 103, despite the obvious American themes in the film, it performed exceptionally well overseas, most notably in the UK, Mexico, South Korea, and China. Number 104, the film earned over $700 million, making it the 9th most successful superhero title of all time. Number 105, due to the success of the film, the Russo brothers were invited back to work on the film's sequel, Captain America Civil War, and were signed onto the project 3 months before the release of Winter Soldier. Number 106, Chris Evans grew up outside of Boston and dreamed of being a painter or animator. In fact, he only started reading Marvel Comics after getting the role in the films. Number 107, also in the Winter Soldier, we learned that Hydra was responsible for Howard Stark's death. The rumor mill has been churning that Bucky is the one who killed him, setting up an even more emotional battle between Iron Man and Captain America in Civil War.
The collaborations don't stop here either. Like any good squad of superheroes, sometimes Cinematica needs a little assist from another powerful entity. We enlisted the help of Mr. Sunday Movies in order to bring you 107 facts about the Avengers that you should know, and would you look at that, it worked. So many facts about the most iconic superhero fighting force in movies.
In 2012, Marvel made history when it brought together Earth's mightiest superheroes to fight as a team in what would become an epic, action-packed, award-winning film. Think you know the whole story? Well, think again. I'm Mr. Sunday Movies from the YouTube channel of the same name, and I'm here to give you the story behind the highest grossing superhero movie of all time, The Avengers. There are almost too many heroes to handle. Almost. So sit back, grab some snacks, and get ready to see Cinematica's 107 facts you should know about The Avengers. Number 1. Read it and weep. Or cheer. The Avengers started as a comic book by Stan Lee and Jack Kirby, and was first released in September 1963. It was actually inspired by the success of DC Comics' Justice League. Number 2. Daredevil had a part to play in the Avengers' existence. Daredevil was not complete by its deadline, so Stan Lee and Jack Kirby created the Avengers to compete with DC's Justice League. The pair brainstormed for a while, and then they came up with the Avengers. They hastily put together the first issue and sent it off to the printer, and the rest is history. Number 3. The Avengers hit shelves the same month as Uncanny X-Men 1. In 1963, and the two teams' paths have crossed plenty of times over the course of their adventures. Number 4. The origin of the film came in 2005, when Marvel Studios CEO Avi Arad announced plans to partner with Merrill Lynch and release a slate of Marvel feature films under Paramount Pictures. They plan to release films that introduced and established the Marvel superheroes before merging the characters in a crossover film, The Avengers. Number 5. X-Men, Hulk, and the Incredible Hulk screenwriter Zach Penn was brought on board to write the screenplay in 2007. Number 6. Paving the way for movies to come, Marvel's first film, Iron Man, was a huge hit and secured distribution rights for 5 future Marvel films with Paramount. Consequently, Robert Downey Jr. was the first Avenger to be cast. Number 7. In 2009, Samuel L. Jackson signed on for an unprecedented 9-picture deal with Marvel to appear as the comic book character Nick Fury, leader of S.H.I.E.L.D. Number 8. Jackson as Nick Fury thanks in part to M. Night Shyamalan, and nobody's thanked that guy in a long time. When getting ready for Avengers, Whedon had a specific vision of Nick Fury, Mr. Glass. Whedon explained that he loves Samuel L. Jackson's many acting roles from Pulp Fiction and more, but it was M. Night Shyamalan's Unbreakable that sealed the deal. Number 9. Edward Norton had played the Hulk in 2008's The Incredible Hulk, and was in talks to return for the Avengers, but negotiations fell through. There were many rumors that Norton was extremely difficult to work with during the film, and was ultimately replaced by Mark Ruffalo, who had been the filmmaker's original choice for Dr. Bruce Banner / the Hulk in the first place. Number 10. After being replaced by Mark Ruffalo as the Hulk, Norton released a statement claiming that Marvel was trying to paint him in a bad light, and that he declined to return because he didn't want to be associated with one character. Number 11. In 2009, Scarlett Johansson replaced Emily Blunt in portraying Natasha Romanoff in Iron Man 2. Number 12. Next, Chris Hemsworth and Tom Hiddleston signed on to reprise their roles from Marvel's successful Thor film. Number 13. Soon after, Chris Evans was offered the role of Captain America in 3 films and the Avengers crossover film. Number 14. Captain America's shield is scratched in the film. Only die-hard comic book fans would know that this would not be possible, as in the comics his shield is made of adamantium/vibranium alloy, depending on the version, and can only be damaged on a molecular level. Number 15. Captain America actually wasn't part of the original comic book team. The team, which had dropped to 4 members due to the Hulk's departure, encountered a mysterious frozen frozen man in the ocean while chasing Namor the Submariner. The frozen man turned out to be Steve Captain America Rogers, and thawing him out, the existing Avengers team granted Captain America founding member status in place of the Hulk. Number 16. TV and film veteran Joss Whedon signed on to direct and completely rewrote Penn's screenplay. At the time, Whedon was best known for his successful TV shows Buffy the Vampire Slayer, Angel, and Firefly. Number 17. Jeremy Renner was cast as Hawkeye, following his Academy Award nomination in the 2009 Best Picture winner, The Hurt Locker. Number 18. In 2010, the Walt Disney Studios agreed to pay Paramount at least $115 million for the worldwide distribution rights to Iron Man 3 and the Avengers, making the release of this film a bona fide event. Number 19. Although set in New York, the Big Apple doesn't deserve too much credit. In your face! The film was primarily shot in Albuquerque, New Mexico, and Cleveland, Ohio. Number 20. To ensure accuracy with the science of the film, the Science and Entertainment Exchange provided consultation. They've consulted with over 1,000 films and television shows. Number 21. Alison Hannigan, from Joss Whedon's Buffy the Vampire Slayer, recommended her How I Met Your Mother co-star, Smulders, for the part of Maria Hill. Number 22. All in the Family, Hannigan's husband, Alex Denisof, played the other in the film. Number 23. Kobe Smulders was cast as Nick Fury's sidekick, Maria Hill, rounding out the main cast. While the How I Met Your Mother co-star's recommendation helped when it came to the casting decision, Smulders was already on Whedon's radar, having been once considered for his Wonder Woman adaptation at Warner Brothers. So you know, it's no wonder she got the role. Number 24. Gwyneth Paltrow, Paul Bettany, and Stellan Skarsgård were asked to reprise their roles in the Marvel Universe. Robert Downey Jr. insisted on having Paltrow join the cast, as she was not going to originally appear. Number 25. Clark Gregg reprised his role as S.H.I.E.L.D. agent Coulson from Iron Man 2, and Thor. Number 26. A man of many hats, Gregg is also an accomplished director, having directed the film version of Chuck Palahniuk's cult book Choke in 2008. That won the Special Jury Prize at Sundance. Next up, well, Gregg has been in talks to direct, you bloody guessed it, a Marvel film. Number 27. Following the film, Gregg's special agent skills led him to star in Marvel's first network television show, an Avengers spin-off, Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. Number 28. Filming began in New Mexico in April 2011, then moved to Cleveland in August, where the city's East 9th Street was chosen as a double for New York City's 42nd Street to be used in the cinematic battle scenes. Who knew Ohio and the Big Apple had so much in common? Not me! I've never been to either of those places. Number 29. Army Reserve soldiers assigned to Columbus, Ohio-based 391st Military Police Battalion provided background action during the battle scenes in Cleveland to ensure authenticity. Number 30. The NASA Plumbrook Station Space Power Facility in Sandusky, OH, was used to portray the S.H.I.E.L.D. facility. Number 31. Although set in New York City, the film was actually shot there for a mere 2 days. Guess the production team decided if they can make it there, then they can also make it anywhere. Number 32. For scenes taking place in Manhattan, visual effects supervisor Jake Morrison shot aerial footage for over 3 days to use as background plates, stating that the main objective was to get as much aerial work in as possible for audiences to see. The big expanses, the wide establishing shots, while also making sure that the effects work doesn't look too computer generated. Number 33. Although the film was released in 3D and IMAX 3D, it was not shot in 3D. It wasn't converted until post-production. Number 34. The film contains more than 2,200 visual effects shots, completed by 14 different companies. Clearly the old too many cooks in the kitchen, or whatever that saying is, does not apply this time. Number 35. Industrial Light and Magic was the lead vendor and shared responsibility in creating many of the film's key effects, including the helicarrier, the New York cityscape, digital body doubles, Iron Man, and the Hulk. Number 36. Weta took over duties from ILM for animating Iron Man during the Forest Duel. Weta claimed that the most difficult part was recreating Iron Man's reflective metal surfaces. Number 37. Digital Domain created the asteroid environment where Loki encounters the Other. Number 38. Iron Man was a huge hit for Marvel, therefore ensuring the Avengers film and also making Robert Downey Jr. a huge star. Downey Jr. initially pushed Whedon to make Tony Stark the lead and show the film from his perspective. They tried out a version like this, but it didn't work, so they kept the story an ensemble piece. Number 39. Concept illustrator and designer of Iron Man's Mark 7 armor, Phil Saunders, borrowed ideas that were proposed in Iron Man 2, as well as some ideas that were abandoned in Iron Man. He merged them together in a modular suit that has big ammo packs on the arms and a backpack. Number 40, a seasoned pro. Avengers is the third comic book adaptation Chris Evans has been a part of. He's previously acted in the Fantastic Four films, Scott Pilgrim vs. the World, and The Losers, an adaptation of the DC Comics The Losers. He also voiced Casey Jones in the 2007 animated Ninja Turtles film. Number 41. Mark Ruffalo physically plays the Hulk in the film, unlike the other Hulk films where an actor portrayed Banner, but the Hulk was a CGI recreation. Ruffalo played him using Avatar-inspired motion capture suits and performed all the Hulk's physical actions. They also captured his facial movements and based the Hulk's appearance on Ruffalo's. This is also the first time they've included body hair on the Hulk. Number 42. To create the Hulk's voice, it wasn't all Ruffalo. The actor's voice was blended with those of Lou Ferrigno, who was the original Hulk from the 1970s TV series, and sound designer Chris Boyes. Number 43. Scarlett Johansson trained for weeks in hand-to-hand combat and weapons training with her stunt team to play Black Widow. She also performed some of her own stunts when Whedon would let her. Number 44. Jeremy Renner trained with 8711 stunt team fight coordinators to prepare him for the role as Hawkeye. He wound up working on 4 straight films with them: Mission Impossible 4, Hansel and Gretel, Avengers, and The Bourne Legacy, culminating in 2 years of training. He also trained with Olympic archers. Basically, he's proven himself game and fit for anything. Number 45, Jeremy Renner tore a muscle in his back during filming, shutting down production for days. Number 46, evil from the start. In the comics, Loki is one of the primary and recurring villains that the Avengers face. In fact, he was the villain in the very first issue of the comic book. Number 47, although Renner is left-handed, Clint Barton, Hawkeye, is an ambidextrous archer. Renner is seen shooting right-handed in Thor, and both left-handed and right-handed in this film. Number 48, Whedon initially didn't believe that Loki could provide enough trouble for the group, but the studio rejected his idea to add another foe. He later credited Tom Hiddleston's ability to throw himself into the role and called the actor an amazing mimic. Number 49, the security guard who asks Bruce Banner if he's an alien is played by legendary character actor Harry Dean Stanton, perhaps best known for his role in Alien. The cinematographer was working on a documentary about the actor, Harry Dean Stanton, partly fiction, and suggested his cameo. Thrilled, Whedon actually wrote a 12-page scene for Ruffalo and Stanton, but very little remains in the finished film. But it does include the line, "Are you an alien?" Number 50. Early drafts of the script featured Wasp, aka Janet Van Dyne, one of the original comic book Avengers. There was a very waspy draft that I wrote, but it was way too waspy, because I was like, she's adorable, I'm just gonna write her. Whedon thought that he might not be able to get Scarlett Johansson's Black Widow to participate, but he did, and the Wasp draft was out and never to be heard from again. Number 51. When Coulson leaves Stark Towers, he also leaves behind several files for Stark to study, relating to the destruction of Project Pegasus. If you look very closely, you can see that one of the files is slapped with the designation 42. This is a reference to Marvel's infamous hero versus hero comic throwdown, Civil War, which saw Iron Man help develop an extra-dimensional prison for captured bad guys and rebellious heroes called Project 42. The project became necessary because the old housing facility, Project Pegasus, had been destroyed. Number 52. Additional filming was needed for the scene where Nick Fury meets the World Council. Whedon wanted members to appear ominous and big, but the way he filmed them, well, you know, they looked more like weather people. Number 53. The only scene that stayed exactly the same as written in the script is the one with Black Widow being interrogated. Having studied Russian literature and language when he was in school, Whedon said he really enjoyed writing the tied to the chair scene he thought up early in his career and was finally able to put to use. The floor around the chair was padded, so Scarlett and her stunt double, Heidi Moneymaker, could do what they needed. Number 54. The helicarrier on the ocean was actually filmed on a runway in the Albuquerque desert. It was literally too hot to handle, described as so hot that Whedon's sneakers melted on the tarmac. He was quoted as saying, "It was a nightmare. Everyone was baking. The chilly air around us is a tribute to ILM's work." Number 55. Originally, the opening of the Avengers would have Captain America stumble outside and discover that he was on a SHIELD helicarrier floating in the sky over New York City. Whedon decided that it would be more dramatic to do the takeoff from the water. The concept artists had designed the wings of the carrier to flush at the flight deck level, which means you would see them as soon as you see the carrier. Whedon wanted the wings hidden underwater. This proved difficult for concept artists creating it. CA Nathan Schroeder has stated, "We had to come up with some way that the wings could actually move. They kind of climbed up and down the side of the ship. So they start underwater, and if you pay real close attention, they kind of elevate upwards and then lock into final position." If you see the original, when it's in the water, you can see there's a bit of folded pieces where the wing is. And if you look at the underside of the helicarrier, you can see I put in some tracks on the front wings and back wings to suggest That's how it rides up and down. Number 56. The film's second unit shot a chase sequence in Worthington, Pennsylvania, at Creekside Mushroom Ltd, former home to the world-famous Moonlight brand mushrooms. Creekside was the world's largest mushroom growing facility and the only underground mushroom farm in the United States. For the production, shooting at the facility meant gaining access to the 150 miles of tunnels 30 feet below the ground. Prepping the tunnels for the chase sequences without power took months. Now that doesn't sound very fun, guy. You get it because fun and fungi, it's a play on words. It's pretty good. Number 57. With so many fight sequences in the film, many of the actors trained in different fighting styles, including medieval fighting techniques, wushu, kung fu, and Kali. Number 58. Another challenge for the production design team was transforming Cleveland's historic public square into an exterior location that would double for Stuttgart, Germany. The production team changed English words on the buildings to German and added a Biergarten to the square. Local workers in the area loved the changes and hoped that the upgrades, new flowers, plants, picnic tables, and lampposts would stay in place after filming was completed. Sadly, they did. Number 59. In order for special effects to pull off the destruction of New York City, special effects supervisor Dan Sudik rigged up precision pyrotechnics with well-timed car gags so that the assigned stuntmen and women could safely maneuver the explosions and flipping cars. Sudik and his team rigged 28 explosions, which went off in a wave fashion down the street to simulate an air attack. The sequence also included setting up 14 cars down the middle of the street. These vehicles included cannon cars, flipper cars, pyro cars, as well as a semi-truck that exploded. Sudik and his team pulled off the sequence without a hitch. Massive props. Number 60. One of the hardest shots of the film was when Hulk punches Thor. It was captured as one long, continuous shot. For the actual punch, they put Chris Hemsworth in front of a blue screen, standing on top of a real section of a downed Leviathan that they'd built. They attached Hemsworth to a cable that they retimed, so it could look like that he was knocked sideways. They then cut a few frames out of the footage, so it looked like the Hulk's punch has instant impact. Number 61. During the hangar fight sequence between Thor and Hulk, one particularly powerful hammer strike sends the green monster stumbling backwards, crippling a fighter plane used to break his fall. If that plane looks familiar, that's because it's the same one used in James Cameron's True Lies. Whedon claims we got that one for cheap. Number 62. Seeing double? Every single Avenger has a CGI copy. They got tons of high quality scans for every actor, so they could create really high quality digital versions. They also captured every possible facial expression from these actors using the Nova camera system. In some scenes where Black Widow was involved in mostly CGI action, they were able to substitute a CGI version of Black Widow. Number 63. The Chitauri armor was originally going to be a lot more golden. In the early days, the gold armor looked very cool, menacing against the pale skin. But once rendered in CG, it looked way too Vegas? It started to look decorative, says Associate VFX Supervisor Jason Smith. It was altered to look more bronze rather than gold. Ditto with the Leviathan, which the designers called Jumbo internally. He was originally a lot more blinged out, making him appear a lot more fake. They ended up dirtying up the alien a lot more to remove the extreme brightness of the gold. Number 64. The fight scene where Iron Man and Loki have a stare down with their retrospective armies was a nod to spaghetti westerns, especially those starring Clint Eastwood. Whedon actually cut the scene together with Ennio Morricone's Once Upon a Time in the West theme before replacing it with the Avengers score. Number 65. The big scene where all the Avengers are fighting and the camera pans around, showing each of them fighting different aliens, required some last-minute tweaks. Whedon decided that instead of fighting alone, Captain America should be helping Iron Man. As a result, they cut Captain America out of his original location and put a digital double cap next to Iron Man. Number 66. During the big fight scene at the end of the film, Hawkeye and Black Widow find themselves fighting back to back against an overwhelming number of enemies. Instead of being worried though, they take the time to reminisce about a previous mission in Budapest. Earlier in the film, a clip on a monitor on the S.H.I.E.L.D. helicarrier of the pair duking it out with a legion of unseen assailants bears a strong resemblance to their climactic battle. Fans theorize that the clip being played is what the characters are referencing. Number 67. When Thor uses Mjolnir to create a storm cloud, the moment is actually made up of stock footage. They were going to create a huge simulation of the storm over Thor's head, but in the end they wound up buying a stock clip of storm clouds forming a circle. The shot ended up being so brief that it was not worth creating CGI clouds for. Number 68. After Thor takes Loki off the Quinjet down to the mountainside, two ravens fly by as they're talking. In Norse mythology, their father Odin has two ravens, Hugin and Munin, who would bring Odin information from Midgard, or Earth. Number 69, after Loki is brought on board the helicarrier, Tony Stark can be spotted wearing a Black Sabbath t-shirt. The band Black Sabbath is well known for their song Iron Man. Although the song was not originally associated with the Marvel Comics character, it has since been referenced in the comics, including at the end of Iron Man when Tony Stark quotes the lyrics, "I am Iron Man." Number 70. Before capturing Mark Ruffalo's performance as the Hulk, they had a makeup artist gussy him up, which in a character like the Hulk's case meant adding attachments to Ruffalo's cheeks and brow to make them more Hulk-shaped. They then added what's called a digital prosthetic to enhance those features. Number 71. The original body that they used to create the Hulk's design was that of Long Island bodybuilder Steve Rom. He was painted green and shot with a special camera so you could see every nuance of how his muscles bounce and flex. Two then became one when they put Ruffalo's head on Rom's Hulk body. Number 72. Rom's honest reason for getting into bodybuilding was always his dream to play the Hulk. Rom's grandfather even knew Lou Ferrigno, the original Hulk, from when they were both sheet metal workers in Brooklyn. Small world. Number 73. For the scene where Bruce turns into the Hulk and chases Black Widow on the helicarrier, they first experimented by doing some mocap footage with an athlete in a mocap suit. Joss Whedon claimed that it looked too human and too much like a real sprinter running, so they had to scrap it. Whedon wanted something more flexible and also more out of control. Number 74. When the Hulk is smashing Loki up and down, they inserted Tom Hiddleston's real agonized face. Animation director Mark Chu says, "I had to get behind Tom Hiddleston and shake him violently so they could capture his real expressions." Number 75. According to Chu, they studied simian motions for the Hulk, and when Mark Ruffalo came to the studio to experiment with different motions in the mocap suit, he started to tend to go towards more apish motions, giving him that animalistic quality that gives you the feel that he's not quite in control. Number 76. They also debated how high the Hulk can jump. In the comics, the Hulk can jump for miles, but the makers of the Avengers wanted to keep him more realistic and create the feeling that he had real mass. So they decided that he can jump to the tops of buildings, but not miles and miles away. Number 77. Robert Downey Jr. didn't wear the painful, pinchy suit much during filming. After the first Iron Man film, Downey Jr. saw what could be done with a CGI suit. So when you see the Iron Man suit in the film, it's CGI. There's a partial version called the football suit that he wears in a couple of scenes, such as at the end where he's laying on the ground. Number 78, in one of the most memorable bits of dialogue from the movie, Banner says that he tried to kill himself, but the other guy spat the bullet out. That's actually a reference to a scene that was filmed and then cut from Norton's 2008 film, The Incredible Hulk. The scene can be found on the DVD extras of The Incredible Hulk. Number 79, Robert Downey Jr. kept food hidden all over the lab set. Nobody could find where it was from, so they just let him continue doing it. In the movie, that's his actual food he's offering, and the moments where he was eating was not scripted. Downey Jr. was just hungry and enjoyed keeping his co-stars on their toes. Number 80. Chris Evans was unsure about his line, "I understand that reference." He feared that audiences would think Cap is unintelligent. However, when they watched it in the presence of audiences, he was relieved to see the crowd found it hilarious. Number 81. Although Kobe Smolder's character Maria Hill doesn't do much fighting in the film, she wanted to appear like she was able to. Even though she wasn't offered a trainer for the film, she got her own Black Ops trainer to train her. That's some serious dedication. Number 82. Avengers creator Stan Lee continues his tradition of popping up in small cameos in all of the Marvel films. Well, most of them. You can spot him in the movie as the man in a newsreel talking about superheroes living among us. Number 83. In June 2011, Avengers stuntman Jeremy Fitzgerald injured his head attempting a stunt involving a 30-foot fall from a building after getting hit by an arrow. Sounds like an extremely terrifying, freaky, close call. Because it was. But thankfully, he survived. Number 84. In May 2012, Whedon said that it was his decision to include Thanos in a post-credit scene, even though the character is not identified in the film. He said, "He, for me, is the most powerful and fascinating Marvel villain." Number 85. Originally, when Iron Man awakes from falling from the sky, he was going to say, "What's next?" Robert Downey Jr. thought it could be more interesting, so he improvised a line about going to a shawarma restaurant. Exactly one day after the film would premiere, an additional coda involving the Avengers eating shawarma was shot and placed at the very end of the credits. Number 86. The result? Shawarma sales reportedly skyrocketed in Los Angeles, St. Louis, and Boston in the days following the film's release. Number 87. Disney and Sony Pictures agreed for Oscorp Towers from The Amazing Spider-Man to be included in the film, but the idea was dropped because too much of the skyline had already been completed. Number 88. A little music to Captain America fan ears in November 2011, because Marvel announced that Alan Silvestri, who scored Captain America: The First Avenger, would write and compose the score for the Avengers. Number 89, Silvestri developed the score with the London Symphony Orchestra at Abbey Road Studios in London, England. Number 90, Abbey Road has a rich musical history, known for being the studio that many classic Beatles and Pink Floyd albums were recorded. The score for The Empire Strikes Back was also recorded there. Number 91, July 2011, a teaser trailer that was meant to be a post-credits scene for Captain America: The First Avenger was briefly leaked online. Entertainment Weekly speculated that it came from a preview screening and described the footage as shaky, fuzzy, flickering, and obviously filmed on a cell phone. Number 92, with so many eager, loyal fans, the Avengers script was under tight security and often referred to by the codename Group Hug. Number 93, but they could only keep it under wraps for so long. At one point, the film's script was stolen and leaked online. The reported source? Ironically, none other than head of S.H.I.E.L.D. himself, Samuel L. Jackson. He'd used a printer in Canada, and a digital copy of the script was left behind. Number 94, the cast was close off screen. The famous battle cry in the comic book, Avengers Assemble, is a call to arms for members of the team to fight the foes that no single superhero can withstand. During production, Chris Evans would send out text messages to the cast to come together for a night on the town in Albuquerque after a long, hard week of work. Evans would text, "Assemble." Number 95, one of the final scenes shot with the Avengers, the one of the very few shot in actual New York City, was the scene in Central Park at the Bethesda Fountain. It was shot on the Labor Day weekend, resulting in thousands of onlookers and lots of paparazzi gathered around to watch filming and causing quite the stir. Number 96, The Avengers was released on May 4th, 2012, and instantly broke the record for the biggest opening weekend ever, grossing over $207 million. The previous record was held by Harry Potter and the Deathly Hallows Part 2. Number 97, sadly, The Avengers did not hold the record for too long. It was broken 3 years later by Jurassic World, which was then again broken by Star Wars: The Force Awakens. Number 98, The Avengers broke several box office records on its way to grossing $623.4 million in North America and $895.2 million in other countries, for a worldwide total of $1.518 billion. It became the first Marvel film to make $1 billion. Number 99, The Avengers is officially the highest grossing superhero movie of all time. Number 100, the film opened to favourable reviews, with critics praising Whedon's direction, storytelling, and the cast performances, especially Mark Ruffalo's take on Bruce Banner / the Hulk. It's got a 92% approval rating. The website's consensus reads, "Thanks to a script that emphasises its hero's humanity and a wealth of superpowered set pieces, The Avengers lives up to the hype and raises the bar for Marvel at the movies." Number 101, though The Avengers was nominated for the Oscar and BAFTA awards for Best Visual Effects, it lost both to Ang Lee's Life of Pi. Number 102, the film won big at the Saturn Awards, taking home awards for 4 out of its 6 nominations, including Best Sci-Fi Film of the Year. Number 103, naturally, a sequel was planned for release in 2015, with The Avengers set to return. It would also include the characters of Quicksilver, Scarlet Witch, Vision, and mega villain Megatron. Ultron. Number 104, with Bettany joining the cast as Vision, he actually has 2 separate roles in the franchise. Also credited for voicing Jarvis, Tony Stark's AI butler. Number 105, between the 2 Avengers films, Marvel released Iron Man 3, Thor: The Dark World, Captain America: The Winter Soldier, and Guardians of the Galaxy. All were box office hits, and Iron Man 3 had a cameo from Bruce Banner in a post-credits scene. Thor: The Dark World has a Captain America cameo when Loki transforms into him to taunt Thor. Number 106, when released on DVD and digital outlets in September 2012, the film once again broke records, topping the Nielsen Video Scan First Alert chart, which tracks overall disc sales, as well as the dedicated Blu-ray disc sales chart, with 72% of unit sales coming from Blu-ray, a record for a new release, in which both the DVD and Blu-ray formats were released simultaneously. Finally, number 107. According to director Joss Whedon, the original cut of the movie was over 3 hours long. About 30 minutes of the exercised footage were included on the Blu-ray, most of which revolve around Steve Rogers, Captain America, struggling to adjust to the modern world. Chris Evans announced that those deleted scenes would be used in Captain America: The Winter Soldier.
Around the same time that we put out those Infinity War facts, it made sense to recap even more Avengers flicks. Specifically, we focused on the Age of Ultron. That one always felt like the middle child of the Avengers movies. There was nothing wrong with it, don't get me wrong, but it never quite stood out in the same way that its predecessors and the follow-ups did. All the more reason to put together some fun facts and do some learning. This is 107 Avengers Age of Ultron facts that you should know.
It's hard to believe with the release of Avengers Infinity War that the Marvel Cinematic Universe has nearly completed Phase 3. The future for the Avengers might be uncertain, but their previous adventures remain frozen in time, like Captain America throughout most of the 20th century. Hey, I'm Brendan with Cinematica, and we're here to count down 107 facts about the Avengers Age of Ultron. Don't forget to subscribe and click the bell icon to become part of the notification squad. Avengers Age of Ultron released in May 2015. It acts as a sequel to 2012's The Avengers and is the 11th film in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. Joss Whedon wrote and directed the film. He's primarily known for writing and heading the previous Marvel blockbuster The Avengers, among many other great cultural touchstones that he played a significant role in creating, like Buffy the Vampire Slayer and his work on The Astonishing X-Men. The second Avengers was named after the 2013 Marvel comic crossover storyline Age of Ultron. However, Kevin Feige, one of the main producers for the MCU, explained that the particular comic in question wasn't the source for the movie's primary storyline. Feige revealed that the crew came up with a few titles that included the words of Ultron, but Age of Ultron suited the overall attitude better than most of the other ones did. So they borrowed the title but took storylines from decades of Avengers adventures. An early script set the premise that Ultron was created by the government to eliminate the need for Avengers. Ultron was meant to turn on its creators, resulting in the Avengers teaming up once more to stop him. That draft, you can imagine, was changed significantly. Viewers don't necessarily have to see the first Avengers to enjoy the sequel. In fact, Whedon took some notes from The Godfather Part 2. It was a classic known for its ability to stand out as a very different movie compared to its predecessor. We also owe the movie's high potential to its stellar cast, and that came with its fair share of preparation. It took Joss Whedon a year to convince Aaron Taylor Johnson to play the character of Pietro Maximoff, aka Quicksilver. Initially, Taylor Johnson expressed worry for the length of Marvel contracts and the time constraints they would put on future projects. Fortunately, Taylor Johnson ultimately signed on when he heard Elizabeth Olsen, his castmate in 2014's Godzilla, would join him for most of the film. This power duo is what we call in the business world a work marriage. However, this speed bump was only the beginning of a long battle to have Quicksilver appear in Age of Ultron. The character had previously appeared in X-Men Days of Future Past, and he was a possible character for both X-Men The Last Stand and Avengers Assemble. Legal complexities over the license to the role resulted in the hero's omission in both films. Eventually, both Marvel and Fox Studios announced a resolution in regards to the licensing of the character. The result came to Quicksilver appearing in Age of Ultron as well as the X-Men sequel, though under specific parameters. There would be no allusion to his relations with the X-Men or Magneto in any Avengers film, and there would be no reference to Quicksilver's membership in the Avengers in any X-Men film. Also, the word mutant, it wouldn't drop in any Marvel film. Not on Fox's watch. It didn't end there, though. The day after Fox announced Evan Peters as Quicksilver for the X-Men franchise, Marvel and Fox entered the legal boxing ring yet again over specific rights for the character. This conflict included the issue of whether Peters would be allowed to portray Quicksilver in any other film outside the X-Men franchise. The battle necessitated a different actor to play Quicksilver in any Marvel film. So, no Peter, sorry bud, you aren't invited to eat shawarma with RDJ or Scarlett Johansson. While the role of Wanda Maximoff, also known as Scarlet Witch, ultimately went to Elizabeth Olsen, other actresses considered for the position included Lindsay Lohan, Saoirse Ronan, Sasha Pierza, and Mila Kunis. Emily Blunt and Ruth Wilson were both considered for the role of Carol Danvers, aka the Magnificent Ms. Marvel, for Avengers Age of Ultron. This idea got scrapped when Marvel Studios announced that Ms. Marvel would have a solo film for herself premiering in 2019. The Marvel Ultimates comic is known for featuring a controversial incestuous storyline between Quicksilver and Scarlet Witch. According to Elizabeth Olsen, while this particular aspect would not be overtly present in the film, she and Aaron Taylor Johnson, quote, played around with certain parts of that fictional relationship. It's not too far-fetched. The two played loving spouses in the modern remake of Godzilla. Thanos was allegedly supposed to be the next villain for the Avengers to face off with, as hinted by the post-credit scene in the first film. Fortunately, this character was put off for another movie because Joss Whedon opted for a more grounded villain, someone or something meant to show the parallels of evil for the real world. The original Avengers team features 6 heroes. Tony Stark, aka Iron Man, is portrayed by Robert Downey Jr. Tony Stark relies on his technology, money, and brilliant mind to stand equal with super superpowered beings and gods. Steve Rogers, aka Captain America, is portrayed by Chris Evans. He begins as a frail man, but after being injected with the super soldier serum, he gained immense strength and helped defeat the terrorist organization Hydra during World War II. The Captain froze in ice from the 40s until the present day, which means he's technically several decades older than his appearance and abilities would indicate. Cap is still adjusting to his new circumstances, but his timeless sense of right and wrong help guide the Avengers through difficult moral dilemmas. Bruce Banner, aka the Incredible Hulk, is played by Mark Ruffalo, who assumed the role in the first Avengers film. Edward Norton had played the character in his previous solo film. Bruce Banner is a brilliant but sensitive scientist. As a result of a lab accident, when he gets angry, he can transform into a gigantic beast known as the Hulk. Thor, the Norse god of thunder, is played by Chris Hemsworth. He's initially from the planet Asgard. Thor is on Earth to keep the peace, mainly from his disruptive brother Loki, who was the villain in the first Avengers film. Natasha Romanoff, aka Black Widow, is played by Scarlett Johansson. She's a human spy who's plagued with doubts about her morals. She's introduced as an agent of S.H.I.E.L.D. organization, but has since closely associated with the Avengers team. Clint Barton, aka Hawkeye, is played by Jeremy Renner. He too is a regular human. His only superpower is being a skilled archer. In the first Avengers film, Hawkeye spent most of the story as an unwilling accomplice to the bad guys as his mind became possessed by Loki. In Age of Ultron, we learn that Barton decided to retire and live with his family on a quiet farm. That original team of 6 expanded in Age of Ultron to include a few new faces, most of which exist in previous films. Sam Wilson, aka the Falcon, played by Anthony Mackie, made his Marvel debut in the second Captain America solo film, The Winter Soldier. James Rhodey Rhodes, aka War Machine, is played by Don Cheadle. The character first appeared in the original Iron Man film, though Terrence Howard played him then. Cheadle assumed the role in Iron Man 2 and has maintained it ever since. The original idea for the Avengers sequel was to make a film smaller in scope, with more of a focus on the characters' relationships. The hope was that this would build intimacy, which would make the film seem organic and avoid rehashing the first Avengers. Both Joss Whedon and Marvel president Kevin Feige spoke to these intentions during the development process between the first and second Avengers movies. On another note, the Abomination, the villain from 2008's Incredible Hulk standalone film, was going to be an antagonist in this film, or at least a secondary villain. Ultimately, the character was written out, and Tim Roth was unable to reprise his role as the horrifying creature. Avengers Age of Ultron was originally planned to be Robert Downey Jr.'s last appearance as Tony Stark, but that theory died when Downey signed on for Captain America Civil War in 2016. 3 stunt doubles were hired to take on Scarlett Johansson's more challenging scenes due to her pregnancy, leading to a lot of confusion and hilarity on set. Embarrassingly, Chris Evans even admitted to saying hello and starting a conversation with one of them, only to discover that the person he was talking to was not Scarlett Johansson. Evidently, finding the right actor to play Ultron was a no-brainer, as Whedon proclaimed that James Spader was his first and only choice when it came to casting the character. The reason? Spader had that hypnotic voice, which was, quote, eerily calm and compelling while also being very human and humorous. In fact, on James Spader's first day on set, the cast was so impressed by his performance that they applauded him after his first take. Because Ultron was 8 to 9 feet tall, the 5', 10-inch James Spader had to wear an antenna-like contraption made of a thick piece of wire with 2 red balls attached to the top. This prop went up against his entire back and 3 feet above his head. This whole setup existed solely for the actors who would share scenes with him. After all, they needed a reference point for where the robot's eyes would be, which were, you guessed it, those 2 red balls. Elizabeth Olsen admitted to the costume being sort of a distraction on set. The story goes that Spader would be giving an intense performance, and out of instinct, Olsen would look at the actor rather than the balls representing his eyes. Much to everybody's amusement, whenever this happened, Aaron Taylor Johnson would yell, "Red balls! Look at his balls, Lizzie!" to get her to look back in the right direction. Taylor Johnson had to go through his share of changes just as his character Quicksilver hopped through some customary adjustments. For starters, producers thought Johnson was too bulky and robust to portray a runner, and he was asked to lose some muscle mass. For his running scenes, Taylor Johnson was filmed with a high-speed camera and then shot a second time running at normal speed against a green screen. The 2 images were then spliced together during editing to give the illusion of a slimmer figure. Alexandra Byrne, the veteran costume designer for Age of Ultron, was tasked with dressing the superheroes for a pivotal party scene at the beginning of the film. Since it was the first time that Thor ever sported party clothes, Byrne worked closely with Chris Hemsworth to find the correct combination of jeans, jacket, and shirt that would fit his shape but not look too themed or showy on camera. Robert Downey Jr. wanted a very sophisticated look, as he always does. Subsequently, it was off to London's famous Savile Row for tailoring. After 5 fittings, Tony Stark emerged looking, well, absolutely fabulous. Many of the Avengers got upgrades in their gear, thanks to the Tony Stark and Bruce Banner duo. Hawkeye not only played a more significant role in the sequel, but he also got a new uniform. The new look blended elements from his original Marvel Comics outfit, his Ultimate Marvel outfit, and his Ronin costume. Might be weird to hear, but Hulk Hulk almost rocked his gray look as he first appeared in The Incredible Hulk #1, 1962. Back in the day, it was hard for colorist Stan Goldberg to keep the shade of gray consistent, so Stan Lee changed him to green. Writer Peter David later revisited the idea of the Grey Hulk in issue number 302 in 1984, with Bruce Banner developing associative identity disorder. The different colored Hulks represented different personalities that the character battled. Grey Hulk appeared more crafty and devious, but Green Hulk was stronger and more dominant. While this concept loomed over Age of Ultron, it never made it into the final product. One of the scenes in which the Grey Hulk would be prominent was the big fight between Iron Man and the Hulk. The effects team at Industrial Light and Magic initially planned to feature a gray-colored Hulk instead of green. However, ILM just changed his eyes to make them look more sullen when under the control of Scarlet Witch. The original Incredible Hulk television series star Lou Ferrigno reprised his beastly role as the voice of the Hulk for Age of Ultron. It wasn't his first time returning though. Ferrigno had previously played the role via compositing with other sounds in the film, from 2008's The Incredible Hulk to 2012's The Avengers. Brian Tyler, the composer for the film, stated that the musical score acted as an homage to the works of legendary composer John Williams. He specifically noted that the musical cues drew from Superman, the original Star Wars trilogy, and Raiders of the Lost Ark. Danny Elfman, another composer and also the lead singer and songwriter for the band Oingo Boingo, also contributed music to the score, using Alan Silvestri's theme from the first film to create a hybrid tune. In the teaser trailer, an eerie rendition of I've Got No Strings was heard and recognized by audiences in every nook and cranny of the world. Originally from Disney's Pinocchio, the song refers to Ultron being free from his master, Tony Stark. Luckily, because Marvel Studios' parent company is Disney, the studio didn't have to pay any royalties for using the song. Just to clear up some confusion, Dr. Hank Pym, aka the Ant-Man, created Ultron in the comics. In this Avengers sequel, Ultron is a dormant project originally developed by Tony Stark. To keep production top secret, the working title for the film was After Party. And the production was intense. ILM had to develop a whole new motion capture system for the film called Muse to better capture the actors' facial and body movements to combine different takes of the same performance. This technology was mostly created with Ultron and the Hulk in mind. An extraordinary asset to the production in Seoul was utilizing drones and remote control cars to place cameras in places that never could have been achieved by camera operators or helicopters. The production enlisted the expertise of brothers Men Stru Pa, a Korean national champion in drone flying, and Pak Min Koo, the Korean national champion in remote car racing. The scene in which Ultron instructs his drones to drive and then latch themselves onto the truck in Seoul took almost a full year to complete, 360 days to be exact, which is 6 days shy of a leap year. Only one animator worked on this particular shot, and upon completion, he received a party and a bottle of champagne for his efforts. Production designer Charles Wood built a ginormous new Avengers Tower set for Age of Ultron, thus creating the most expensive set ever assembled for a Marvel film at the time. Much of the movie takes place in that very Avengers Tower and on its many different levels. A vast expanse of glass was created to show an iconic view of New York City. The multiple environments were structured and connected to the film's production, designed to have the ability to move from floor to floor with incredible ease. While the film was mostly shot at Shepperton Studios in Surrey, England, additional footage was filmed in Italy, South Korea, Bangladesh, New York City, and various locations around England. With more than 3,000 visual effects shots, Avengers Age of Ultron featured the most VFX shots of any Marvel movie upon its release, topping the previous record holder Guardians of the Galaxy, which had 2,750 VFX shots. Cinematographer Ben Davis, who also worked with Marvel on Guardians of the Galaxy, shot the film with a central unit of 3 ARRI Alexa cameras. Davis explained that although the Alexa was Marvel's preferred camera, it wasn't necessarily a standard. The only non-negotiable requirement was that the film had to be shot in digital. Davis also utilized Blackmagic Design's pocket cinema cameras to meet the needs of the second unit kit. The second unit typically requires a fleet of smaller cameras that are less expensive and rugged enough to handle numerous trials by fire. In regards to the camera system, Whedon stated that Ultron was shot very differently from the first film, utilizing lots of long lenses. The method was that he aimed to shoot the film almost like a documentary. Before shooting began, Davis sat down and planned out Age of Ultron's lighting using a pen, paper, and a floor plan of the set. He said that on a production of the film's scale, he had to be sure that all the lighting was just right even before filming began. We'll get deeper into the subject later, but it's a known fact by many that Joss Whedon wanted to lengthen Thor's poolside visions and those scenes in general. However, executives issued an ultimatum stating that if they were extended, it would be in the place of Hawkeye's farm scenes. Whedon chose to keep the farm scenes. This film marks the first time in the Marvel Cinematic Universe that Thor appears in a film without Loki. Tom Hiddleston did film a scene reprising Loki, but it was ultimately cut from the final version as Joss Whedon felt it didn't play well with the rest of the film as a whole. Each Avenger, except for Black Widow, tries to lift Thor's hammer and naturally fails. Ironically, in the comics, Black Widow was deemed worthy to wield it in an alternate reality storyline, specifically Natasha Romanoff of Earth 23223. In the comics, not many characters have been deemed worthy of lifting Thor's hammer, Mjolnir. Captain America stands as one of the few worthy members. In the film, he was even seen to be nudging it just a little bit, to Thor's dismay. As we all know, there are a lot of differences between what goes down in the cinematic universe and the infinite supply of Marvel comics. There's one in particular worth mentioning, however. In the comics, the gem on Vision's forehead is the Solar Jewel, allowing Vision to absorb ambient energy for power and also emitting a beam for defense. In Age of Ultron, this gem was changed to the Mind Stone, which is one of the stones fated to be placed on the Infinity Gauntlet. When Tony Stark tries to lift Thor's hammer, he jokes by saying, "I'm reinstituting Prima Noctis." Prima Noctis was allegedly a law in late medieval Europe by which a feudal lord could claim the first night, implying the night after the wedding, with any bride in his dominion to have sexual relations with her. This practice was depicted in Braveheart. Tony provided Black Widow with some newly powered fighting batons based on eskrima sticks, a weapon typically used in Filipino martial arts, and famously by the DC superhero Nightwing. Hawkeye also received an upgrade to his weaponry with many new arrow tips to serve a variety of purposes. Hawkeye's quiver also changed, becoming more automated and faster loading and capable of holding, wait for it, 9 whole arrows. When Tony Stark goes to upload his new AI partner Friday, it's a reference to the film His Girl Friday, which Joss Whedon often lists as one of his primary influences on writing strong female characters. There is another drive labeled Jocasta. In the comics, Jocasta was an AI created by Ultron. Her mind and body became modeled after Janet Van Dyne, aka the Wasp. She would eventually turn against Ultron and join the Avengers. Veronica, Bruce Banner's creation that houses the extra Hulkbuster parts, is a nod to the Riverdale Rascals from the Archie comics. In the comics, Archie Andrews is a high schooler who's torn between two women that love him, Betty and Veronica. Banner already had a girlfriend, Betty Ross, so this armor was named Veronica to show the other side of Banner's personality, the Hulk. When Scarlet Witch tries to mind control Hawkeye, he neutralizes her and quips, "I tried the mind control thing. Not a fan." This scene is a reference to Jeremy Renner being openly displeased with his character being mind controlled by Loki during most of the first Avengers film in 2012. Ultron is seen wearing a red cloak during part of the film. In his first appearance in the comics, Avengers number 54, released in 1968, he wore one throughout the issue under the alias known as the Crimson Cowl. The Mark XLV Iron Man used in the final battle is inspired by the Heroic Age armor seen in the Marvel Comics. Age of Ultron features the debut of Stan Lee reciting his famous catchphrase, "Excelsior," for the first time in a film within the Marvel Cinematic Universe. Stan also plays a World War II veteran who drinks Thor's 1,000-year-old Asgardian alcohol. While the liquor is fictional, Stan did serve in the army during World War II. At age 20, he joined in 1942 and got assigned to the Signal Corps. He repaired telegraph poles and other communications equipment, before transferring to the Training Film Division where he wrote manuals, film scripts, and even did some cartooning. During the Hulk vs. Iron Man fight, Hulk gets tossed at a truck that says Crawford. In the comics, Bruce Banner's mentor, Dr. Jeffrey Crawford, becomes his enemy called Ravage, who first appears in Rampaging Hulk number 2 from 1998. Easter egg, or just a generic truck company? You decide! During the scene where Tony Stark witnesses the future, he sees the Avengers dead and Captain America's shield shattered. It's only been broken a few times before in the comics, but it could be a reference to the Infinity Gauntlet, a 6-issue series published in 1991 where Thanos murders all the superheroes. One of the last is Captain America, whose shield gets destroyed. The subplot in the movie where Thor tries to learn more about his futuristic vision by visiting a mystical well refers to the Well of the Weird, which first appeared in Thor Annual 11 in 1983. It's no secret that producer Kevin Feige is a huge Star Wars fan, which makes it as no surprise that every Marvel Phase 2 film has a reference to the second Star Wars movie, The Empire Strikes Back. The scene in question is Luke getting his hand sliced off by his father, Darth Vader. The second Avengers continues the tradition when Ultron severs Ulysses Klaue's arm. New York City's Grand Central Station statue transportation, designed by French sculptor Jules-Philippe Coton, met its demise when it was crashed into by a Chitauri Leviathan during the first Avengers film. Age of Ultron reveals Grand Central statue to be newly constructed, depicting a tribute to the first responders who came to the city's aid after the first attack. Unlike in the comics where her son Amadeus plays the pivotal role of scientific discovery, Helen Cho took to the spotlight in the film, both for her advances in human healing as well as the melding of human tissue with artificial intelligence. While Amadeus was known for devoting his powers to the side of Marvel's greatest heroes, his presence in the MCU seems like a long shot for now. During Captain America's vision of reuniting with Peggy Carter, the band supplying the music in the background can be seen for a split second, revealing them to be the Roy Thomas Players. This scene is a reference to comic writer Roy Thomas, who co-created and updated several heroes and villains, most of whom have been featured in the MCU. His roster includes everything from Ultron and Vision to Yellow Jacket and Adam Warlock. Both Marvel producer Kevin Feige and director Joss Whedon let fans know ahead of time that there is no post-credit scene at the end of Age of Ultron. There is a mid-credit scene, but as Whedon told Entertainment Weekly, they wanted people to know beforehand, so they didn't sit in the theater for an extra 10 minutes. Raise your hands, who missed the memo and did that anyways? You may have seen War Machine in TV commercials and trailers, but where's Pepper Potts? Age of Ultron is the first film where Stark appears without Pepper Potts. Both he and Thor have a humorous exchange in the movie, explaining why their lady loves are missing in action. Throughout the film and in the trailers released for the movie, Ultron compares himself to Pinocchio. Coincidentally, his creator, Robert Downey Jr., is playing the role of Geppetto in an upcoming reboot of Pinocchio. So the villain wasn't actually that far off from the truth. Chris Evans and Chris Hemsworth stated on separate occasions that Joss Whedon had not told them the plot of the sequel, with Evans claiming that he didn't even know the title of the film until the official announcement at San Diego Comic-Con in 2013. Additionally, Hemsworth and Kobe Smulders, who plays Maria Hill in the film, both admitted to not knowing exactly who Ultron was on separate occasions. According to the DVD commentary for Age of Ultron, Robert Downey Jr. improvised his "Hello Dear" line when working on the tractor. Whedon enjoyed the line so much that he admitted to kicking himself for not having thought of it. The Hulk was initially supposed to fly off in the Quinjet into space, but this idea got put on hold because Marvel didn't want people to think they were setting up a Planet Hulk film. They can't fool us, though. Hulk did eventually end up in outer space. Former Ant-Man director Edgar Wright wrote an after-credits scene for the movie, but the final product didn't make it to the cut due to his ambitious plans for the Ant-Man universe. As with any film, there were various designs for the characters finished by concept artists. These included a more comic-accurate take on Ultron with his trademark jack-o'-lantern face, as well as an alternate Quicksilver outfit that included a green shirt with a white lightning bolt as a nod to his original costume. Chris Hemsworth was unhappy with Thor's role in the movie, saying it was boring to play. He recalls telling Kevin Feige, "I feel like I'm dying here. I feel like I have handcuffs on," which is what ultimately led to the character adopting a more comedic yet still arrogant personality in Thor Ragnarok and Infinity War. Andy Serkis was initially brought in just as a motion capture consultant to help Mark Ruffalo and James Spader. However, Jeremy Latcham then stumbled upon some online fan art of Serkis as the Black Panther villain, Claw, and Joss Whedon liked it so much that he decided to cast Serkis as Claw in the movie. Hawkeye and his wife named their new baby boy after Black Widow and Quicksilver. His name is Nathaniel for Natasha, Pietro after Quicksilver, Barton. Actor Aaron Himmelstein, who played a S.H.I.E.L.D. agent intimidated by Rumlau in Captain America Winter Soldier, returns as one of the new agents on Fury's helicarrier. The New Avengers facility is a reference to the New Avengers comic, which initially featured a team of both old and new heroes, just like at the end of the movie. Deadline Hollywood calculated the net profit of the film to be $382.32 million. When factoring together production budgets, P&A, talent participations, and other costs, with box office grosses and ancillary revenues from VOD to DVD to TV, the film placed 4th on their list of 2015's most valuable blockbusters. Everyone's their own worst critic. In May of 2015, Whedon was very upfront with the press about his clashes with Marvel over scenes he wanted to keep, from Hawkeye visiting his family at the farmhouse to the Avengers dream sequences. He was also not happy for Marvel being so adamant about keeping a Thor and Eric cave scene in the final picture. Whedon later apologized for his harsh comments, but hey, every artist has their day. Whedon also took the mixed critical response to Ultron very personally, revealing that Ultron was the most complicated response he'd ever gotten. His way of coping allegedly involved going into the fetal position for about 8 months. Whedon was not happy with his work on the film and refused to return to direct future Avengers movies, although the cast, especially Mark Ruffalo, lobbied for his creative direction. To conclude, Whedon was so exhausted after working with the sequel that he decided not to direct the 2-part Avengers Infinity War sequels. That job instead went to MCU's newest dynamic directorial duo, the Russo brothers, who who gained acclaim for their work on TV shows like Community and Arrested Development. You may also know the pair from their MCU directorial work like Captain America Civil War and The Winter Soldier. Every movie has its fair share of controversies. About 200 small-town German movie theaters decided to boycott the film after Disney demanded 53% of ticket sales, without taking into account the sizes of small-town venues. Traditionally, a studio film takes about 47.7% of the opening weekend box office. Disney has also cut the money it would usually contribute towards advertising and advances for 3D glasses. Not a great look, Disney. The film received mixed reviews upon release in China due to poor translations. The translations were said to be too literal, with some Chinese critics assuming the work was merely run through Google Translate. But don't think that made a dent in the film's performance. Avengers Age of Ultron grossed $429,894,783 domestically, and $1,322,833,715 in worldwide sales. At the time of its release, Avengers Age of Ultron had the second most significant US opening ever, but still fell short of the first Avengers film. As of 2018, both mega blockbusters bow to the reigning success of Marvel's top cat, Black Panther. According to a small portion of analysts, the opening weekend box office gross was lower than expected because of the weekend's featured boxing match between Floyd Mayweather and Manny Pacquiao. On October 2014, Marvel announced a two-part sequel to Avengers Age of Ultron, titled Avengers Infinity War. Part 1 was scheduled to be released on May 4th, 2018, with Part 2 scheduled for May 3rd, 2019. Of course, the date for Part 1 got bumped up to April 27th, and Part 2 later lost its Part 2 subtitle, being renamed simply Avengers 4. The subtitle will be announced at a later date once Infinity War has had time to set in.
With Phase 3 wrapped up, it's time for some more Marvel facts. The next couple videos are from Phase 4, which is more hot off the press and less intimately understood by a lot of fans, which, makes sense that we'd put out some more knowledge about it. Here's the inside scoop. From the Oscar-nominated film, here are 107 Wakanda Forever facts you should know. Once again, the Marvel Cinematic Universe has taken the world by storm, and it's all thanks to its latest outing, Black Panther: Wakanda Forever. The new Black Panther film faced a host of different obstacles before it finally hit theaters. From the tragic passing of Chadwick Boseman to a certain globe-altering event that I won't name this early in the video for the sake of not getting demonetized. Of course, there's a lot of different angles to Wakanda Forever's stories, and I've got about 107 of them right here for you to check out. This is 107 facts about Black Panther: Wakanda Forever. Oh, and there's some soft spoilers in here, by the way, just a little heads up. Number 1, just like the original Black Panther film from 2018, Black Panther: Wakanda Forever is directed and written by Ryan Coogler. Number 2, and of course you won't be surprised to hear that Wakanda Forever is produced by longtime MCU helmsman Kevin Feige. Number 3, it's been 4 years since the first Black Panther film came out, but Coogler and Feige started developing ideas for sequels shortly after its release in 2018. Number 4, Kevin Feige said that there were many stories to tell about Black Panther, and that the sequel could have gone in a number of different directions. No matter where Black Panther went though, Ryan Coogler was always the first choice to tell the next story. Number 5, this wasn't just Feige's choice. In general, Marvel as a studio was looking to get the band back together. For the sequel, they wanted to maintain the same creative team from the first Black Panther as much as they possibly could. Number 6, while Ryan Coogler was always slated for Wakanda Forever, he wasn't alone in the process. Joe Robert Cole returns from the first Black Panther as Coogler's co-writer. Number 7. Among all the ideas for the Black Panther sequel, one idea in particular stuck out. Up until now, the MCU had only shown T'Challa as a fledgling ruler. We've only seen him reach the throne and learn to grapple with new responsibilities. For Wakanda Forever, Coogler wanted to explore what kind of king T'Challa would be after settling into the role and getting some experience under his belt, similar to how he's been traditionally portrayed in the comics that Coogler grew up reading. Number 8. More specifically, Coogler's initial idea for the script would have explored how T'Challa processed his life post-blip. Coogler noted that T'Challa would be grieving the loss of time after being gone for 5 years. Number 9. Just like Coogler, there was never a question about bringing Chadwick Boseman back as Black Panther. In March of 2018, Boseman's agent, Michael Green, was negotiating his appearance in 2 more Black Panther sequels, the first one for $10 million and the second for $20. Number 10. Coogler Coogler was also negotiating his rate with Marvel at the time. Although he was Marvel's #1 pick for a Black Panther sequel, he didn't immediately sign on to the project. Instead, Coogler quietly completed negotiations in the month following Black Panther's premiere. Number 11. Tons of the original Black Panther cast returned to Wakanda Forever. Letitia Wright was confirmed to return as T'Challa's sister Shuri in November 2018. Number 12. Also, Angela Bassett is back as Ramonda, T'Challa's mother and the Queen of Wakanda. Number 13. Even before Angela Bassett was officially confirmed for the role, everyone was speculating that she'd be back. At the 2019 Screen Actors Guild Awards, a reporter asked Bassett if everybody would be back for the next Black Panther. While she responded with a simple "I assume so," her husband, Courtney B. Vance, chimed in with a more concrete answer. Vance dropped the bomb that even Michael B. Jordan would be back as Killmonger. Number 14. Sure enough, a few months later, the rumor of Killmonger's return made its way all the way up to Kevin Feige himself. When asked about the rumor, Feige denied it, insisting that the rumor of Jordan's return was just that, a rumor. He added that Coogler had not even shared an outline with him and co-producer Nate Moore. Number 15. Of course, as we all know by now, Michael B. Jordan does return in Wakanda Forever as the soul of Killmonger in Shuri's vision. He was open to the role from the beginning, and once he found out he would be in, he even had to keep that secret from his family. Number 16. John Connie, who played T'Challa's dad and King of Wakanda, T'Chaka, expressed his interest in being in Wakanda Forever, but he never ended up making it into the final script. Number 17. For Wakanda Forever, Danai Gurira reprises her role as Okoye. Number 18. Gurira first got the news about playing Okoye from Ryan Coogler himself. At the time, Coogler asked her to keep it hush-hush. If she was asked about a Black Panther sequel, Coogler urged her to only say that they were working hard and that she was in it. Number 19. After lots of rumors and speculation, Kevin Feige officially confirmed the existence of a Black Panther sequel at 2019 San Diego Comic-Con. Number 20. Not long after, in August 2019, Martin Freeman said that he'd also be returning to the next Black Panther as Agent Everett Ross. Number 21. While it's hardly her MCU debut, Julia Louis-Dreyfus is in Wakanda Forever as the enigmatic Contessa Valentina Allegra de Fontaine, head of the CIA and Everett Ross's ex-wife. Number 22. At that year's D23, Marvel announced the tentatively titled Black Panther and even dropped a release date, May 6, 2022. However, as we now know, they would miss this date by a wide margin. Number 23. Tragically, Chadwick Boseman, the original Black Panther of the MCU, died in August 2020 after a years-long battle with colon cancer. Number 24. Like the rest of the world outside of Boseman's family, Coogler, Feige, and everyone else at Marvel were personally unaware that Boseman had been fighting cancer all those years. Number 25. Ryan Coogler had already written a script, but Boseman never got the chance to read it before he died. Coogler said that when he offered Boseman a look, Boseman refused to read it because he wanted the studio to give notes first. In hindsight, Coogler now believes that Boseman may have just been too tired to read it due to his illness. Number 26. Boseman had been battling colon cancer for over 4 years before things took a downward turn towards the end. He was 43 years old when he died. Number 27. Ultimately, Marvel made the decision not to recast the character of T'Challa. They wanted to avoid fan backlash and the inevitable comparison between Boseman's Black Panther and the new one. Kevin Feige himself said that a recast would have been too much too soon, both for the inside and outside of the MCU. Number 28. One person who did support a recast of T'Challa was Derek Boseman, Chadwick Boseman's brother. He believed that his brother would not have thought that he was the only one who could play T'Challa, and would not let his ego get in the way of a recast, even after his passing. Number 29. Aside from recasting T'Challa, the other option would have been to digitally recreate the character for the sequel. Thankfully, Black Panther executive producer Victoria Alonso initially assured us that it would not happen, out of respect to Chadwick Boseman. Number 30. Ultimately, Marvel decided to make Shuri the new Black Panther. At one point in the comics, Shuri also adopts the mantle of Black Panther, so it was determined to be a natural choice for the MCU as well. Number 31. Before Chadwick Boseman died, he, Kevin Feige, and Ryan Coogler were discussing the idea of depicting T'Challa as closer to his what-if persona. This animated T'Challa had a much lighter, easygoing tone, and Feige says that Boseman had a lot of fun portraying this version of the character. Number 32. This animated version of T'Challa in the What If series is the last time that Chadwick Boseman would get to play the character. Number 33. Ryan Coogler has said that rewriting the film after Boseman's passing is the hardest thing he ever had to do in his career. Number 34. In November 2020, a number of other cast members were officially revealed to be returning for the Black Panther sequel. While it was practically a given, Angela Bassett was now officially back. Number 35. Also, Lupita Nyong'o is back in Wakanda Forever as War Dog Nakia, T'Challa's lover. Number 36. Lupita Nyong'o is Kenyan Mexican, so she was excited when she learned that her character would have the opportunity to speak Spanish in Wakanda Forever. Number 37. One character who does not return in Wakanda Forever is W'Kabi, as played by Daniel Kaluuya. Kaluuya couldn't work on the new Black Panther because of a scheduling conflict with filming Jordan Peele's Nope. Number 38. Winston Duke returns as M'Baku, T'Challa's old rival, leader of the Jabari tribe, and now King of Wakanda. Number 39. Before Duke signed on as M'Baku again, he actually negotiated a pay raise with Marvel because his character played a much more prominent role in Wakanda Forever. Number 40. There were tons of different ideas for how M'Baku would play into the Black Panther sequel. At one point, he was even considered to be the new Black Panther. Winston Duke actually campaigned for M'Baku to be the villain. Number 41. However, Ryan Coogler knew who the villain was going to be all along. Namor, the Submariner. Coogler even wanted to tease Namor at the end of the original Black Panther back in 2018. Number 42. For Wakanda Forever, Namor is played by Mexican actor Tenoch Huerta. Number 43. If you can believe it, Huerta didn't know how to swim before he played Namor. When Coogler approached him with the role, all Huerta could say was, "I've never drowned before." So he was given swimming lessons and breath training, along with another of other actors. And yes, for the record, Huerta did have to use floaties. Number 44. During training, Mabel Cadena ended up being one of the standout swimming stars. She plays Namor's right-handed warrior, Namora. Number 45. After all of her training, she held the record among the cast for holding her breath underwater the longest. She was able to hold on for an entire 6.5 minutes. Number 46. Before Wakanda Forever, Ryan Coogler didn't know how to swim either. He also learned how to swim for the movie, knowing how much filming would be taking place underwater. Number 47. Aside from swimming and breathing technique, Huerta and the cast who played the Talokani also had to learn Yucatecan Maya for much of Wakanda Forever's dialogue. Number 48. Wakanda Forever is Namor's first introduction into the MCU. Number 49. While he's new to the MCU, he's been a part of Marvel's roster for a long time. He's actually one of Marvel's first 3 superheroes, alongside Angel and the Human Torch. He debuted in 1939 as a direct aquatic opposite to the Human Torch. Number 50. Why is Namor called Namor? Well, the answer is simpler than you might think. Namor is called Namor because it's Roman, spelled backwards. Number 51. In the comics, Namor is actually from Atlantis, but MCU changed it to the futuristic underwater Mesoamerican city of Talocan. Coogler wanted to make sure the character and the city were different enough from DC's Aquaman to avoid comparison. Number 52. Talocan itself was heavily inspired by ancient Mesoamerican culture, including the indigenous Mayan, Aztec, Olmec, and Toltec civilizations. The filmmakers worked with Mayan historians to create the world and costumes. Number 53. For example, even the name of the city is a nod to Mesoamerican culture. Talocan is named after the city of Tlalocan, an Aztec paradise overseen by the Aztec rain god Tlaloc. Number 54. As far as creating Talocan goes, that responsibility fell on the shoulders of production designer Hannah Beachler. She returns as the production designer from the first Black Panther. Number 55. Beachler says that when she was creating Talocan, she was heavily inspired by the movies Jaws, Close Encounters of the Third Kind, and the classic Jack Kirby illustrations in the old comics. Number 56. Beachler included a number of other different references and details in the sets. For instance, she said that the teeth in the Talocan throne room are supposed to be from a megalodon. Number 57. Also, take a look at the hieroglyphics on the throne. According to Beachler, they read as "This jade tooth bites." Number 58. Talocan isn't the only set with some hidden references. Remember the Wakanda flower shop? Look around and you'll see that it includes the national flowers of every single country on continental Africa. Number 59. The hut where Bashenga, the first Black Panther, is born is actually based on a real hut in Mvezo, South Africa. That particular hut is where Nelson Mandela was born in 1918. Number 60. There's a sign in Wakanda that says Wakanda Architects. You'll see that the names on it refer to some of the folks that worked on Wakanda Forever, including Beachler herself, art director Mary Arnold, graphics designer Kelsey Brennan, and even Jack Kirby, the man who originally created Wakanda in the comics. Number 61. While the whole film carries the memory of Chadwick Boseman, there's even a subtle nod to him hidden in the set. If you look closely at the license plate of the truck that's transporting Everett Ross, you'll see that it reads CB112976. It stands for Chadwick Boseman and his date of birth, November 29th, 1976. Number 62. Even Nakia's house number in Haiti is a reference. The number 1804 is a reference to the year that Haiti first gained its independence from France. Number 63. That's not the only reference to Haiti's independence either. Chala and Nakia's son, Toussaint, shares his name with General Toussaint Louverture, who fought with Haitian slaves to free Haiti from French colonial rule. Number 64. Ruth E. Carter returns from the original Black Panther as costume designer for Wakanda Forever. Number 65. When designing Namor and the other members of the Talokani, Carter made sure to heavily incorporate jade throughout their costumes. Number 66. Carter also infused their costumes with a number of underwater elements like kelp. She attempted to give the Talokani a look of sea creatures like sharks and lionfish, especially when it came to their headdresses. Number 67. Because so much of Wakanda Forever was filmed underwater, the costumes were heavily tested underwater to see how they would look and if they would hold up at all. Carter even had to attach weights to some of the Talokani costumes so they would work for the scenes. Number 68. For the headdresses in particular, Carter was inspired by ancient Mayan vases with headdresses on them, as well as various sculptures from ancient Mesoamerican cultures. Number 69. One of Namor's headdresses is a specific reference to Mayan culture. Like M'Baku says, Namor's people don't call him king, but Kukulkan, the feathered serpent god. The ancient Mayans worshipped a feathered serpent god who was also named this. Number 70. Carter made sure to pay homage to the staples of Namor's classic costume from the comics, including the pointed ears, the winged ankles, and even the little green shorts. Number 71. Tenoch Huerta was a fan of Namor's green shorts, though he called them the shame shorts. Number 72. The white clothes that the Wakandans wear to T'Challa's funeral are based on the real Ghanaian tradition of wearing white to funerals. Number 73. Black Panther Wakanda Forever is the 30th Marvel film in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. Number 74. Wakanda Forever is also the final film of MCU's Phase 4. Number 75. While the sequel had gone unnamed for a number of years, Wakanda Forever's title was officially announced to the world in May 2021. Number 76. Wakanda Forever was actually supposed to be the title of the third Black Panther movie, but the producers bumped it up given the circumstances. It just felt like the right time to use that title. Number 77. Before Boseman passed, filming for Wakanda Forever was set to begin March 2021. The filming was eventually pushed back to June of that same year. Number 78. Black Panther cinematographer Rachel Morrison was set to return for Wakanda Forever, but could not due to scheduling conflicts. Number 79. She's replaced by Autumn Durald Arkapaw, the cinematographer of the Marvel's Loki series on Disney+. Number 80. Here's a more technical fact for you. To film Wakanda Forever, the team switched from using spherical lenses to anamorphic lenses. Put simply, anamorphic lenses stretch the picture vertically so nothing is cut off by the widescreen ratio. This gives it some extra resolution but warps the image a bit. Then the image is squished back down to that widescreen ratio when it's projected. Number 81. You're probably wondering what the point of this switch is. Well, Coogler described this distorting effect of anamorphic filming as a reflection of how profound loss can warp how you look at the world. He said it's a way of portraying and dealing with the fog of loss over Wakanda Forever. Number 82. The actors dealt with that feeling of loss on set too. Danai Gurira felt emotional while filming throne room scenes. She and Letitia Wright would regularly take walks to process Boseman's loss together. Number 83. In Wakanda Forever, Dominique Thorne makes her MCU debut as Riri Williams, aka Ironheart. Number 84. According to Kevin Feige, Thorne actually started filming Wakanda Forever a week before she started filming for her standalone series, Ironheart. Number 85. Before Thorne was cast to play Ironheart, she originally auditioned to play Shuri for 2018's Black Panther. Number 86. In August 2021, Letitia Wright was injured while filming stunts in Boston. She was sent to the hospital with seemingly minor injuries and went home to London in September to rest and recover. In her absence, the Wakanda Forever team continued filming all the scenes that they could without her. Number 87. Well, it turns out that Wright's injuries weren't as minor as they first appeared to be. She ended up suffering a fractured shoulder and a concussion. Number 88. While the team did all they could with Wright in recovery, her absence eventually caught up with them. In November of 2021, production was forced to go on hiatus because all the remaining scenes needed to be filmed with Shuri in them. Number 89. Once Wright was all rested up, production finally was set to resume in January of 2022. Wright was slated to finish up filming the rest of her scenes over the course of about 4 weeks. Number 90. But of course, as it had been for the whole production, COVID reared its ugly head with a set of new obstacles. On November 8th, 2021, just after production went on hiatus, the US Center for Disease Control and Prevention announced a new rule. All non-US citizens and non-immigrants had to be vaccinated before traveling to the States. Wright is not a citizen and at the time was reportedly not vaccinated. Number 91. Sure enough, Wright did eventually make it back to set, fully healed and recovered. Unfortunately, a number of the cast and crew did get sick with COVID, including Lupita Nyong'o, and so production got pushed once again, and it was unable to resume for about another week. Number 92. After a long, difficult production process, the filming of Wakanda Forever finally and officially ended on March 24th, 2022. Number 93. The production was so plagued with problems that the cast had an inside joke. If you asked them, the whole thing was Ryan Coogler's fault. They joked that he cursed the production by calling the film Wakanda Forever because filming just never seemed to end. Number 94. Ludwig Göransson composed the score for Wakanda Forever. He also did the score for 2018's Black Panther. Number 95. Aside from Göransson's score, you'll hear a number of pop songs when you watch Wakanda Forever. For example, the movie's lead single is a Rihanna song called Lift Me Up. Rihanna wrote the song with Thames, Göransson, and Coogler as a tribute to Chadwick Boseman. Number 96. This is actually the first solo song that Rihanna has made since all the way back in 2016. As soon as she saw the trailer featuring Thames' cover of Bob Marley's No Woman No Cry, Rihanna knew she wanted to get involved with Wakanda Forever. Number 97. At one point, Marvel actually considered having Rihanna work not on just Wakanda Forever's music, but also be a part of the cast. They wanted her to play Princess Xanda, the ruler of Narobia. The character never made it into the final movie, so Rihanna just stuck with music. Number 98. Black Panther Wakanda Forever was filmed in a number of different locations. A majority of the filming took place in Brunswick and Atlanta, Georgia, while a number of the stunts were filmed on location in Boston, Massachusetts. They also filmed in Puerto Rico later in the production cycle. Number 99. Filming in Georgia has been a mainstay of Marvel and Disney in general, but for Wakanda Forever there was an added complication. It all comes down to the passage of Georgia's Election Integrity Act of 2021. Because of the bill's controversy, some were weighing the option to boycott filming in Georgia as an act of protest. Number 100. Ryan Coogler actually wrote an op-ed publicly addressing the issue. He made sure to note how opposed he was to the bill and how he planned to advocate for its repeal. Ultimately though, he said the best decision for the sake of those working on the movie was to keep filming in Georgia. Number 101. Once Wakanda Forever was finally complete, it made its first global debut in Hollywood on October 26, 2022. It played in two theaters, the El Capitan Theater and the Dolby Theater. Number 102. Aside from Hollywood, Nigeria got an early look at Wakanda Forever too. The film played in Lagos, Nigeria on November 6th. Number 103. Beyond there, Wakanda Forever debuted internationally on November 9th in European territories like France. Finally, everywhere else in the world, including the US, got to see the film on November 11th. Number 104. Black Panther Wakanda Forever set a number of records during and after it premiered in Africa. For one, it's the biggest film premiere that Nigeria has ever seen. Wakanda Forever also broke the historical box office record in West Africa and set the box office record for 2022 in East Africa. Number 105. As far as the runtime of the film goes, Wakanda Forever clocks in at 161 minutes. That's 2 hours and 41 minutes. That makes it the longest solo MCU film, even beating out the Eternals. The only MCU film longer than Wakanda Forever is Avengers Endgame, which comes in at 3 hours and 1 minute. Number 106. Before Wakanda Forever even starts, the classic Marvel Studios intro includes a nice homage to Chadwick Boseman. T'Challa is the only character to appear as the pictures flicker by. Also, as a sign of respect, this is the only Marvel Studios intro that plays without any accompanying music. Number 107. Also, out of respect, Wakanda Forever doesn't have an after-credits teaser sequence. Sure, there is a mid-credits teaser, but producer Nate Moore felt a post-credits scene would pull away from the poetry of the film's ending. He likened it to having a scene after the credits of Endgame. It just wouldn't feel right. Who was that guy doing the voiceover of that last one? He should be super famous by now, perhaps even living in a big mansion. Yeah, that sounds right. Speaking of mansions, which are a kind of home, here are 107 Spider-Man No Way Home facts you should know. It's hard to believe it's been over a year since Spider-Man No Way Home hit theaters. For a while, it looked like No Way Home wasn't even gonna be made, at least not by Marvel Studios. Despite Sony and Disney's battle, the new Spider-Man managed to dust the cobwebs off of theater seats around the world. With great knowledge comes great responsibility, so here's an additional 107 responsibilities for you to reckon with. This is 107 facts about Spider-Man No Way Home. Number 1. Just like Spider-Man Homecoming and Spider-Man Far From Home, Spider-Man No Way Home is directed by Jon Watts. Number 2. This makes the new Spider-Man trilogy the first trilogy in the Marvel Cinematic Universe to have the same director for all 3 films. Number 3. No Way Home is written by Chris McKenna and Eric Sommers. They're the same duo that wrote Far From Home, and they also wrote Homecoming alongside Jonathan Goldstein, John Francis Daley, Christopher Ford, and even Jon Watts himself. Number 4. As is Marvel tradition, Kevin Feige produced Spider-Man No Way Home, but he wasn't alone. Seeing how this movie was a collaboration with Sony, former Sony Pictures chairperson Amy Pascal was also brought on to produce. Number 5. Marvel and Sony had always planned the newest batch of Spider-Man movies to be a trilogy. Tom Holland dropped that bomb back in 2017 before Homecoming had even come out. Number 6. So, development for the third piece of the Spider-Man trilogy started in August 2019, alongside a 4th movie that Sony wanted to do. Number 7. However, within that same month, things started to look dire between Disney and Sony. Suddenly, Sony announced that Feige, and by extension Marvel Studios, were no longer part of the next Spider-Man movie. Number 8. At first, Sony claimed that Feige was out because he had too many other projects, and that Disney did not allow time for him to work on IP they do not own. Number 9. Sure enough, the real reason quickly showed itself: a disagreement about money. Well, before the news broke in August, Disney and Sony had been in negotiations for months. By August, things had finally broken down to the point that both companies abandoned the negotiation table. Number 10. Before then, Disney and Sony's arrangement was such. Disney got to use Spider-Man for 3 films: Captain America Civil War, Avengers Infinity War, and Avengers Endgame. In exchange, Kevin Feige and Marvel Studios would make 2 Spider-Man movies for Sony to distribute. Simple, right? Number 11. Apparently, this original deal was so simple that the legal document outlining the agreement was only about 4 to 5 pages long. Number 12. While Disney already had bought merchandising rights for Spider-Man from Sony, this deal also included a bit about how Disney would have to pay yearly royalties to Sony. These royalties amounted to about $30 million a year, but that number was tied to the success of the upcoming Feige-produced movies. Basically, the more money the movies made, the less the royalty payments would end up being. Number 13. Of course, the details of this deal may have changed behind the scenes over the years, but one thing is irrefutable: these new Spider-Man movies made bank. Homecoming made about $880 million, and Far From Home managed to rack up over $1.1 billion in gross sales. Number 14. That made Spider-Man Far From Home Sony's highest grossing film ever released at the time. Number 15. Reportedly, Disney was already pulling in something like 5% of each Spider-Man movie's box office gross as per their existing deal with Sony. Number 16. With the 2 promised Spider-Man films finished and wildly successful, it was time for Disney and Sony to negotiate a new arrangement for the rights to Spider-Man. Initially, Sony wanted to sign Marvel Studios up for more films at the same rate as the original deal. Number 17. On the other hand, Disney had a different suggestion. Disney wanted to help finance the films and therefore have stake ownership. For example, Disney offered to fund 25% of the film in exchange for 25% of the earned cash. This number fluctuated between 25 and 35% and even shot up 50% before the negotiations got completely called off. Number 18. By this time, Chris McKenna and Eric Sommers were already in the early stages of writing the 3rd Spider-Man movie, so it seemed like Sony was forging on their own, determined to make a Spider-Man outside of the MCU. Number 19. While the writers were already on board, just about everything else was up in the air. Like Marvel, Jon Watts had only been signed on for 2 films, so even his involvement wasn't a guarantee. Number 20. Sony had hoped he'd jump on as director, but after things went south with Disney, there were rumors that Marvel was trying to lure Watts in to work with them instead. Number 21. By September, Sony Pictures CEO and chairman Tony Vinciquerra only had kind but vague words about Marvel. While he praised the studio and Feige for their great work thus far, all he could say was that for the moment, the door is closed when it came to working with them again. It looked like Spider-Man was officially out of the MCU and back in the SSU, the Sony Spider-Man universe. Number 22. In the court of public opinion, Disney and Spider fans were not pleased with this split. Just days after Sony's announcement, Disney held their D23 Expo and fans made their disdain known. Number 23. Even Spider-Man was moved to action. Tom Holland reached out to Disney CEO Bob Iger and Sony Pictures head Tom Rothman, hopeful that they would kiss and make up, and hey, it worked. Sony and Disney both went back to the negotiating table. Number 24. Bob Iger himself has credited Tom Holland and the fan outcry for the renegotiations. Number 25. So what was the final number that made everyone happy? 25-25. Disney was locked in to finance 25% of the third Spider-Man in exchange for 25% of its stake ownership. Also, Disney retained the merchandising rights for Spider-Man. Number 26. And so, Spider-Man was now back in for an additional MCU film, and the film even got a scheduled release of July 16th, 2021. Number 27. While Chris McKenna and Eric Sommers had already been writing, all of the business news created some interruptions. When the dust finally settled, they truly jumped into the project around December of 2019. Number 28. Naturally, the script went through a number of different iterations. One early idea was to have longtime Spider-Man enemy Kraven the Hunter as the main villain. John Watts was so into the idea that he pitched it to Tom Holland. Number 29. Despite Watts' optimism, Kraven the Hunter was not meant to be. Among other reasons, one possible explanation for Kraven's omission was Sony's own plan for Kraven. Sony had already been in the early stages of their own Kraven movie, so introducing him with the MCU before Sony got their own swing at the character was likely seen as a bad idea. Number 30. With Kraven out of the picture, McKenna and Sommers took inspiration from some surprising sources, such as It's a Wonderful Life. Like George Bailey, McKenna and Sommers toyed with the idea of Peter making a wish now that his identity was exposed. That led to the inclusion of Doctor Strange and eventually the inclusion of a multiverse as a key plot point to make this wish of his come true. Number 31. And so, now that a multiverse was on the table, McKenna and Sommers started writing the film with all of the old Spider-Man main characters involved. Keep in mind, this is before they had ever received any kind of green light about getting the original actors to return. Number 32. There was one actor they didn't have to worry about though. Even as Disney and Sony were playing financial tug of war, there was no doubt from either party about Tom Holland returning as Spider-Man. Number 33. In fact, the only one who's expressed doubt about a Tom Holland Spider-Man is Tom Holland himself. While he loves the role, Holland has said that if he's still rocking the Spidey suit when he's 30, he's done something wrong. As an alternative, he's also suggested shifting the Spider-Man story over to Miles Morales. Number 34. Holland isn't quite 30 yet, but for No Way Home, it was a challenge for him to return to that naive teenager headspace that Peter Parker occupies. At some points, it was even more of a strain for Tom Holland to raise his voice. Number 35. You could chalk that up to age, but he could have also just been exhausted. Tom Holland finished filming No Way Home just hot off the heels of wrapping the filming on Uncharted just 2 days earlier. Number 36. Tom Holland isn't alone though. Zendaya is back to play MJ in No Way Home. Number 37. No Way Home is actually the first time we get to hear her full name, Michelle Jones Watson. Before then, we didn't know her last name was actually hyphenated. This addition brings her one notch closer to the classic Mary Jane Watson of the comics. Number 38. Peter and MJ's chemistry is hardly a surprise. Zendaya and Tom Wilson are dating in real life. It's practically a long-held Spider-Man tradition. Andrew Garfield played and dated his co-star Emma Stone, who played Gwen Stacy, and Tobey Maguire dated his co-star Kirsten Dunst. Number 39. You can't have a multiverse plot without Doctor Strange. Sure enough, Benedict Cumberbatch is back as the MCU's #1 sorcerer. Number 40. Benedict Cumberbatch deliberately didn't read the full script during the making of No Way Home. He just wanted to be surprised by the finished movie once it was finally complete. Number 41. Peter's friend also gets his hand on some magic for No Way Home. Once again, he's played by Jacob Batalon. Number 42. To prepare to play Ned, Jacob Batalon actually lost about 102 pounds for the role. Of course, he also did it for personal health reasons. Number 43. Just like with Michelle Jones Watson, we finally learn Ned's full name in No Way Home. Ned Leeds. Fans had assumed this for a while, but this confirms that Ned is a reference to Ned Leeds from the Spider-Man comics. He's Peter Parker's work friend from the Daily Bugle. Number 44. At one point in the comics, Ned Leeds actually gets brainwashed into becoming the Hobgoblin. It's subtle, but No Way Home makes reference to this. When Tobey Maguire's Peter talks about his friend trying to kill him, see Harry Osborn from Spider-Man 3, Ned tells Holland Peter that he'd never do that. Number 45. Marissa Tomei returns for Spider-Man No Way Home as Aunt May. Tomei was particularly excited to show May's passion for community activism. Number 46. May works with the group known as FEAST, Food, Emergency, Air, Shelter, and Training. FEAST has actually been a part of the comics since 2008 and was also in the 2018 PS4 Spider-Man. Those stories usually depict FEAST as a front for Mr. Negative's schemes, but No Way Home's version seems to be above board. Number 47. Just before May dies, she says the iconic line, "With great power, there also must come great responsibility." This is the actual line from the original Spider-Man comic, as opposed to the now popularized, truncated version from the Sam Raimi movies. With great power comes great responsibility. Number 48. So Uncle Ben had his line in the original Spider-Man movie, and Aunt May had hers in No Way Home. But who said it in the original comic? Well, neither. The line was never said by a character and was actually just part of the ending narration. Number 49. You may have picked up on that little flirty moment between May and Doc Ock. Turns out that's a direct reference to the comics too. In 1974's Amazing Spider-Man number 131, May and Otto Octavius were actually dating. They even came close to getting married. Number 50. And who can blame her? Alfred Molina reprises his role as Dr. Otto Octavius, and he looks just as good as he did in 2004. Number 51. To be fair, Molina and Dr. Octopus have been digitally de-aged for Spider-Man No Way Home. Molina was actually surprised when he was offered this role, seeing as how much older he'd gotten. Number 52. While Molina's face got a few digital enhancements, Doc Ock's tentacles received an entire CGI overhaul. In 2004's Spider-Man 2, the tentacles we see were a mixture of computer graphics and actual tangible puppets. For No Way Home though, the tentacles are completely digital. Number 53. Visual effects have come a long way since 2004, but Sony initially wanted to build off the original Doc Ock CG model from Spider-Man 2, especially for long and medium shots. Unfortunately, they found out that that model doesn't exist anymore, so the VFX team had no choice but to craft a new model from scratch. They also had to de-age Molina in more shots than they had anticipated. Number 54. On the bridge where Doc Ock first appears, there's a license plate that reads 63 ASM-3. This is a reference to 1963's Amazing Spider-Man number 3, the first comic that Doc Ock appeared in. Number 55. That's not the only vehicular Easter egg though. When Peter Parker is putting on the spider suit, you'll see that the cab behind him has the number 1228. This is a reference to December 28th, the day that Stan Lee was born in 1922. Number 56. So we've got Dr. Octopus, but Max Dillon, aka Electro, also crossed over through the multiverse. Just like in The Amazing Spider-Man 2, he's played by Jamie Foxx. Number 57. Jamie Foxx actually confirmed the news himself in a likely unsanctioned Instagram post. His post was swiftly deleted, so it seems like he jumped the gun on playing Electro again. Foxx was just too excited that he wasn't gonna be blue anymore. Number 58. As pumped up as Jamie Foxx was not to be blue, does Electro's color change even make sense? Well, there's actually an in-universe reason as to why. When he powers up, Electro mentions that the energy of this new universe is different. It's a brief explanation, but it's there. Number 59. As quick as that explanation is, there's an Electro reference that's even quicker. When Electro shows up for the final battle powered up, the sparks across his face make the classic star shape of the old school Electro costume from the comics. Number 60. There's another subtle reference to old school Electro. The clothes that Peter throws Electro are high visibility gear from a power station. It's a nod to Max Dillon's original occupation in the comics as a line worker before he got his powers. Number 61. So Alfred Molina's Doc Ock is iconic. Jamie Foxx's Electro is less iconic, but great all the same. But nothing says iconic like bringing Willem Dafoe back to play longtime Spider-Man villain, the Green Goblin. Number 62. Willem Dafoe was excited to put the green suit back on, but only under one condition. He insisted on doing as many of his own stunts as was possible. Number 63. Just like Molina, Willem Dafoe was digitally de-aged to play Norman Osborn in No Way Home. Number 64. Aside from the de-aging, Dafoe used a practical effect for the Green Goblin too. When he was in Norman Osborn mode, he actually wore prosthetic teeth. Then, once the Green Goblin took over, the prosthetic came off and Dafoe's actual teeth were filmed. This was how they filmed Dafoe's scenes in the original 2002 Spider-Man movie too. Number 65. Speaking of, there's a not-so-subtle callback to the 2002 Spider-Man. I'm sure you've heard Norman Osborn's now infinitely memed line, "You know, I'm something of a scientist myself." Well, now you get to hear it again in No Way Home. Number 66. Doc Ock also gets a direct callback to his original lines. He says, "The power of the sun," before Peter 2 jumps in to finish the line with, "In the palm of your hand," a reference to Doc Ock's final line in Spider-Man 2 before things take a turn for the worse. Number 67. If you can believe it, there are even more returning villains. Thomas Hayden Church returns as the Sandman, aka Flint Marko. Number 68. Also, Rhys Ifans reprises his role as the Lizard, Dr. Curtis Connors. Number 69. While both actors are in No Way Home as their respective characters, they only appear in voiceover roles. On screen, both of their characters are entirely computer generated. Number 70. John Watts actually did some motion capture references for the Sandman. Number 71. Towards the end of the movie, Sandman and Lizard appear in their human forms. However, that's just reused old footage of their characters from Spider-Man 3 and The Amazing Spider-Man. Number 72. Even the Netflix shows are getting in on the MCU. Charlie Cox is in No Way Home as Matt Murdock, aka Daredevil. Number 73. While this is Daredevil's MCU debut, this is the second MCU crossover with Marvel's Netflix shows. The first was Vincent D'Onofrio's Kingpin appearing in Hawkeye. Number 74. Once again, Jon Favreau plays Happy Hogan, but he also played Foggy Nelson alongside Ben Affleck in 2003's Daredevil movie. There's actually a cut line where Happy is sitting alongside Daredevil and says that he's a little foggy on the details. It's a subtle nod to Favreau's Daredevil history that we never got to see for ourselves. Number 75. Tom Hardy shows up in the mid-credit sequence as Venom. Venom has actually been hanging around the MCU since the post-credit sequence of Venom: Let There Be Carnage. Number 76. If you look closely, you can see the name McFarlane spray-painted on a subway platform. This is a reference to Todd McFarlane, the famous comic artist who created Venom. Number 77. Like with the cars, Marvel loves their graffiti Easter eggs. You'll see the name Ditko sprayed on the side of a feast truck. You'll also find Ditko tagged on the building behind Peter and MJ as they hang out on the roof. They're subtle shoutouts to Steve Ditko, the co-creator of Spider-Man alongside Stan Lee. Number 78. That said, there's nothing subtle about the return of Tobey Maguire. He's back as Spider-Man, aka the friendly neighborhood Spider-Man, aka Peter 2. Number 79. At 45 years old at the time of filming No Way Home, Tobey Maguire is the oldest on-screen Spider-Man. Number 80. McKenna and Summers took notes from Maguire on how to portray his version of Spider-Man. Maguire wanted to keep expositional details about his Spider-Man to an absolute minimum. Let the audience figure things out for themselves about his life after Spider-Man 3. Number 81. Tobey Maguire alone is impressive, but Andrew Garfield also returns as his version of Spider-Man, aka The Amazing Spider-Man, aka Peter 3. Number 82. Like Maguire, Andrew Garfield had a lot of input on his Spider-Man, specifically how dark his life had become after the death of Gwen Stacy at the end of The Amazing Spider-Man 2. Number 83. Remember the climactic scene where Garfield's Spider-Man saves MJ? That was actually John Watts' idea. They wanted to give him a kind of redemption after failing to save Gwen in his own universe. Number 84. Maguire and Garfield were approached and signed on to Spider-Man No Way Home before they had even read the script. Number 85. It's no secret now, but Marvel went to extreme lengths to keep this multiverse character out of sight. Willem Dafoe would regularly wear a cloak on set, just in case anybody happened to see him. Number 86. Also, at one point, Andrew Garfield and Charlie Cox had lunch facing a wall, just so that nobody would see their faces and recognize them. Number 87. Despite the secrecy, one clip leaked to the public. A few months before No Way Home's release, the world got to see Andrew Garfield in full Spider-Man gear, minus the mask. There's no audio, but you can read his lips. Do you ever get web block? Number 88. Filming for No Way Home started in Queens, New York in mid-October 2020. The crew was there just to get on-location establishing shots. They filmed in the Queens neighborhoods of Astoria, Long Island City, and Sunnyside. Number 89. In the movie, MJ works at a spot called Peter Pan Donut and Pastry Shop. Turns out that's a real place in Greenpoint, Brooklyn. Film crews shot there, then recreated the location in Atlanta for principal filming. Number 90. Much of Spider-Man No Way Home was filmed under the working title Serenity Now, a reference to the classic Seinfeld bit. Number 91. Once filming wrapped in New York, principal filming started on October 25th, 2020 in Atlanta at Trilith Studios. Number 92. As I'm sure you expected, there were lots of COVID protocols on set. For masking, Holland described a system of lights that they had to follow. A blue light meant that masks could come off for filming, a yellow light meant that masks had to go back on so the crew could come in and do what they needed to do safely. Number 93. In the spirit of safety, Marvel also used new VFX tech that allowed actors to be scanned. From there, post-production could digitally add details like makeup and costumes to avoid exposure. Number 94. COVID also forced the No Way Home team to switch cinematographers. Seamus McGarvey was the original cinematographer, but he had to leave after getting COVID and due to scheduling conflicts. He was replaced by Mauro Fiore. Number 95. COVID also obviously pushed the release date back from the originally planned July 16th, 2021. First, it was pushed back to November 5th, 2021, and then eventually the final date was set at December 17th, 2021. Number 96. Trouble was, Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness was originally slated for 11/5, or November 5th. So when No Way Home got pushed back, the new Doctor Strange got pushed right along with it. Number 97. Because No Way Home was originally supposed to come out after Doctor Strange, Spider-Man needed some rewrites for continuity purposes. For one, the original script saw a Strange that was already familiar with the dangers of the multiverse. Of course, that had to get rewritten because, Multiverse of Madness wouldn't have happened yet. Number 98. Multiverse of Madness also needed some rewrites. Because Benedict Cumberbatch started filming for it in London as quickly as November 2020, the film needed some reshoots as well. Number 99. As for Spider-Man No Way Home, filming finally wrapped in March of 2021. Number 100. The rest of the US didn't get to see No Way Home until December 17th, but the movie held its world premiere on December 13th in Los Angeles at the Fox Village Theater. Number 101. So once the film was finally out for all to see, was all the Sony v Disney fighting worth it? Well, yes. Spider-Man No Way Home grossed over $1.9 billion. Number 102. That makes it the highest grossing film of 2021, the highest grossing Spider-Man film, and the highest grossing film that Sony has ever released. Number 103. For the record, No Way Home had a budget of about $200 million, so this movie made one hell of a profit. Number 104. No Way Home was breaking records even before it was out. The teaser trailer for No Way Home climbed to be the most watched trailer for any movie within 24 hours of release. It clocked in at 355 million views, beating out Avengers Endgame's record of 289 million. Number 105. To celebrate 60 years of Spider-Man comics and 20 years of Spider-Man movies, Sony and Marvel released an extended cut in fall of 2022, the more fun stuff version. Number 106. This version included a number of cut scenes, including one where Spider-Man catches a thief. The thief is actually played by Tom Holland's younger brother, Harry. Number 107. So what's next for Spidey? Well, Sony and Marvel have a fourth Spider-Man movie in the works. While Tom Holland's contract has officially ended, he and everyone at Sony are looking forward to him coming back. Let's hope he gets there before he hits 30. And that's all, folks. We've deep dived deeper than you could possibly imagine into the MCU and came away with a treasure trove of fun facts. Who knew Spider-Man could do that many backflips? I didn't even know if we talked about that part, but hey. I hope you enjoyed this movie marathon of sorts, and that you learned something new. Which fact surprised you the most? You want more videos like this? Make sure you let us know down in the comments, like the video, and subscribe to Cinematica. Thanks for watching.